They keep adding. Okay. She just needs to keep adding and updating that.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. I apologize for a delay. We had an executive session that ran overtime, and so we're running from one meeting to another, since we have a large group here today. All right, so we're going to call Tuesday, May 2nd, 3 o'clock meeting, workshop agenda to order. We'll stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Please rise. Thank you. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Roll call.
Will Ferry present.
Christy Chong present.
Sally Hunt.
Colin Conklin present.
Cheryl Macero.
Kathy Middlestat.
All right, we're going to look at the agenda. We'll skip 2 because that'll come forth at our regular meeting. We have spotlights that we will do at that time, and we'll go through the approval of minutes. Does anybody have any questions or anything about those topics, 2, 3, and 4? Are there any additions or changes to the agenda, Ms. Middlestat?
We're going to pull 901. That's going to turn into an in-state travel.
901. The professional learning communities is being pulled at this time. 901. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And we are now at public comment. Public comment. Ms. Gavin, do we have public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can begin.
First, public comment is from Jack Zalutsky regarding the Healthcare Screenwriting Club.
Before Jack begins, I just want to remind everybody that it is our role to listen. We do not respond, but we do listen, and that's important. So come on up, Jack. Make any seat you like.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and school board members, my name is Jack Slabotsky. Why we are members of Belty Racquetball and Swimming Pool here? The answer is obvious. We want our facilities in Palm Coast stay open, at least until promised YMCA built. Belty Swimming Pool and racquetball club is source of our senior citizens' well-being and longevity. For many people, elderly and children, including special needs children, adults, who currently use these facilities in daily routines as physical exercise, stress relief, rehabilitation after surgeries, weight management, consequently, excuse me for my
You're fine.
language, I have an accent. Consequently, in management of hypertension, diabetes, depression, circulatory problem, etc. In addition, it's a social club for people like us who doesn't have family, who lost his partner. It's a place where we get together, talk, try to joke, and keep living, live on. In addition, social club where many strong positive relations bloom, assisting some people with local family to create support systems which are needed for many humans. Please have in mind, by voting against all these people to have access to social and psychological necessities of modern stress you're placing them in acute danger of decline, depression, and early death, which is discriminatory to say the least. We are tax-paying, law-abiding citizens of Palm Coast who deserve to have sport facilities to stay fit and healthy. We just recently, until Palm Coast City builds a new aquatic or YMCA center, please keep Belterry swimming pool, gym, and sauna open. I am a member of that club for 14 years, and I am 80 years old. And I still like to swim, enjoy talking to you, say thank you for taking care of us. And it's going on for many, many years already. For the time I've been in club, it's not the first time we go through that same. Why in the world the most important part to close this place? Closed facilities to us members came up many times in 5 years. We do not understand why it is school board first priority to deprive us to access to this club. By reviewing last proposal, I saw two options. One option, kick us out, to close club access, disassemble gym, create some kind of rental opportunity, and help the seniors. You do not want us to rent, and you do want us to rent swimming pool and pay an additional rentals fee. We're already paying school taxes, which support school district budget. And we're paying, let's say, not nice, but we're paying your salary too.
All right, Jack, we gotta wrap it up here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm wrapping up, okay. Well, I'm asking you, please reconsider your voting, and please join us, especially I'm applying to you, Mr. Sarhant, support us. I know two people not very fond of keeping place open.
All right, Jack, that's enough. Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Judith Zach regarding Belterre Swim and Racket Club.
One. Oh, people, 355.
Hello.
Hi,
I know you've
welcome
seen me
back.
before.
Yes.
I don't know, Jack, I couldn't hear him very well, but
355.
so far, 355 people on this petition to try to keep it open, and we're getting more every day.
Got 200 more.
I think I shared with Ms. Massaro, this is the last time the place was advertised, where they gave little hangers on people's doors and stuff. 2015 is my last one that I had left. Also, questions that have come up with people are, this place was left by ITT to the school board back in the day when I don't think there was parks and recreation and things like that in town. And I would love to know what the letter of intent said with the property. You know, was it only for kids or was it for the community or whatever? But I don't have any idea how you find out what this letter of intent actually said. So I think that would be important for you guys to look at before you vote. I think there are bonds still held out on this place, so I don't know much about that, but if there's still bonds on the place, you're still gonna be responsible for paying them? Is there a certain interest rate? Who holds the bonds? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. And the fact that we came out of adult ed from FTI, I don't know who made that decision, because that's what used to cover us. So all the adult ed programs used to cover the extra money it cost to keep us going. You know, we've been getting more people there, because I know, I see it, because I'm there 3 or 4 days a week. But that's without any advertising. We're closed Sundays, but Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we close at 3. And we're only open till, I think, 6 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you can't have people who work. You can offer deals, I think you have offered deals to the school teachers, but how can they go? They're in school. So even if you offer them half price or free, they can't go because the hours are so terrible. And yet we still exist because there's heart. These people all here, there's heart. And I see a lot of younger people starting to come. A lot of people don't know we're here. I just wish, I know you three are new to the school board, and I know it's hard for you to understand what the place means. I always used to describe it as there's TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name, and you go there. I know you're young, you guys are young, maybe you've never watched Cheers, but it's a community place, and the young and the old all get together. So I just wish you would give us a second consideration. I know, I heard from you, because I've been at the last 2 meetings, you seem to have made your mind up already, but I wish you could just think about it a little further. And I know the vote is at the next meeting, but please consider us. You know, we're part of the community. I don't mind paying taxes. Kids are our future, so I would never criticize paying school taxes. But we're part of it all too, so.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Next speaker is Konyans on Belter's Racket Club. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, you're good. I didn't know it was going to be so early. That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I'm Khan Kenyans. I'm the son of Tanya Axelrod. She goes to the Aquatic Center, to the Belter Racket and Swim Club. And I just wanted to say that, you know, thank you for allowing me to voice our concerns. She is actually doing much better because she does a lot of swimming and things like that, and I don't know where else we would find services like that if this place was to shut down and not be available to the public. I understand that, you know, the school board, the school situation is growing because of all the young people moving in, and you have to get additional territory for the schools. But while they're doing their thing, I think that the adults also have to have, like Jack said, and you know, just basically a place to congregate, because that's an important anchor. I know that the city is sort of just starting out in that direction of growth. Coming from Philadelphia, I've been here for 2 years. I have to say that I've seen the growth that I've seen in the region of Philadelphia that I lived in the Northeast. It was also very quick. So, especially in the Russian community, a lot of the people back here are Russian speaking, and so it's interesting to me to see that growth, but at the same time I don't want you to, or not you, but those institutions to be deprived from them. So that's an important thing to us, and it's an important place to congregate and that kind of thing, and that's all basically I wanted to say. Just consider that. Consider the future, and both the young people and I guess the older people who are also the interface to other communities and other people who might be moving in. They might want to have something to, you know, to advertise, to say, oh, look, you can congregate here. Not necessarily in a church environment, but also in like a public space. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank
That
you.
was short.
Thank you very much. Sir.
Take care.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Let's get our phone under control here.
Just a reminder, if everyone would please check their smartphones to make sure they are silenced.
Okay, we got it. Who's next?
Matthew Slanovich on Belter Swim and Racket Club.
Hello. Thank you all so much for having us here today.
Welcome.
So, hello, I'm Matthew Slanovich. I'm fairly new to Palm Coast. My wife and I moved here about 11 months ago, and I came across the Belterre Swimming Racket Club recently, and I've just fallen in love with it. And I see it as such, like she said, it is. I'm young enough to have seen Cheers on like Nick at Night reruns and stuff. So, but no, you know, it is. It's a beautiful little community there, and the reason I moved to Palm Coast is to attend a master's program at the town center at Jacksonville University, the satellite campus there, and I'll be earning my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And you know, as the importance that I see this facility having is obviously in that wellness arena. You know, it's such a valuable first line against, you know, mental health issues, anything. And I think Palm Coast is already lacking in facilities that address that. You know, which is why I was, you know, brought here to move. So, taking away another lifeline, so to speak, before this YMCA that's in the works is built, I don't think it's wise. I think, like Jack said, I think it could be detrimental to the health of a lot of folks in town. And so I'm just here to support the cause and just say that please, I would just hope that you two would reconsider. Sally, I know that you're taking your time to really kind of weigh everything. I really appreciate that. So I hope we can all just come to the right decision to keep it open. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Massaro, just a question on rules. I guess I was under the understanding that public comment can address the chair and the board as a whole, but not individual members. Is that different for a workshop? Or is that
No, it's generally the same. They're just talking to people as a group.
And is that the precedence that we want to
It depends.
set?
What do you want?
I would, you know, if the public now sees me as a swing vote, I find that really pretty annoying, if I'm being honest. I would prefer that I'm not, I'll speak for myself. I would prefer that.
All right, so I'm asking the public not to mention any other board's name, member's name, as they do their presentations, okay?
And I just want to say, I appreciate the public comment. I mean, this is your community. I appreciate the public comment. Do not get me wrong. I just,
Fair enough, I think that's fair.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, who's next?
Kat Burrell, Belterre Swimming Racket Club. She is.
Say it, here.
I really didn't expect to speak. I didn't know by signing that I was going to speak.
Oh, well, that was what it's there for, but welcome, Miss Pat.
I just don't understand from a few years ago. Okay, we know the school district didn't want anything to do with the Belterre Swimming Racket Club for quite a while now. Okay, then let's back it up to saying that it wasn't doing well. Okay, it was in the red when I first started there, and then Marta Barber came. Okay, not for anything, but the two of us witnessed that place came out of the red. Because what happened was I devised the whole system for the memberships, with the people sneaking in and then the people coming and not renewing their memberships. And we got all that money, and Marta came up with a lot of ideas for different classes. We got that place out of the red, and then COVID hit. Of course, then we get told that it's not doing well. Well, nobody gave us a chance to pick up again from COVID. And that's just so wrong. And like they said, a lot of people use that for therapy. Myself, I had a torn meniscus and a fractured tibia. I went to the aquatic class and I've gotten better. But I don't, you know, right from the beginning, when we had people walking the grounds for the longest time, evaluating the place and how much it would cost. Okay, supposedly, I mean, don't hold me to it, but the parking lot, which was the worst nightmare, was gonna cost like $225,000. So then, so they were gonna go through with it, taking care of everything. So they ripped down the portables, where we had a lot of classes going on. A lot of people don't want to go to A1A for the classes, okay? So we lost a lot of people there. Then the tennis courts were closed. And then the hours now at the pool. In the summer, who closes the pool on a Sunday when the students are out of school? You lost all that money. Then the school hasn't hasn't wanted to do anything with that place for a while. Meanwhile, it's high school swim teams, it's the other little swim teams with, you know, I forgot what they're called. So why wouldn't the school want anything to do with it when it's school-oriented? I just don't understand where the reasoning is. You know, especially when we had people walking the grounds all the time. They didn't know the expenses from the beginning. All of a sudden, it went from $225 to $425, something like that, for the parking lot. I just don't understand how this all happened. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Brandon Tarazi, Belter Pool.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm new to this community myself. Came out of California, and I was hoping that things would be nice. And I've been working out all my life since 1980. And all I'm asking is that I think there was a very valid point there on the donation of this property. If there's any restrictions or whatever, I think that needs to be dug into. And I'm a person that believes there's a solution for everything. And I hope we find one here. Thank you.
Tanya Axelrod, Belter Swim Club.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome.
Well, my son already told everything. Like, after lots of things what happened, like 2021, 22, COVID things, I couldn't walk. As you can see, I still. It's all because of the pool. It's all because of the gym club, all the community. It's so good. I mean, it's new machinery, option to swim, actually all year round. So it's absolutely priceless. All I can say is that please keep it up.
Okay, thank you.
Final speaker, Wilfredo, come on down. Wilfredo Liras.
I didn't see them.
Hello. Welcome back.
Welcome.
I used to dance with a girl Colleen, but I loved her when I was a kid, right? That's why I like that name. All right, here we go. Big mouth again, okay? But I think I speak only the truth. My name is Wilfredo Lieras. I'm sorry I speak so loud, okay? But what can I tell you? 24 years on Palm Coast, 16 years in Navy, GI Bill, the whole 9 yards, okay? Now, there's a reason why I'm saying this. I'm not showing off. There's a reason why I'm saying that. Thank you for allowing me to express my honest viewpoint. I appreciate the work that you're doing sometimes on behalf of the citizens of Palm Coast. I believe in freedom, freedom of speech, as in the Constitution of the United States. On April 18th, 23, I made a presentation here that was very difficult to access at the internet and was put on Please Stand By. That is 14 days. Look it up right now. You'll see the same thing. Stand by. Why? I don't know. Okay? Now, we all here are here to only speak the truth. I made mention of a future plan of Palm Coast with the master plan in mind. Yet, that presentation was difficult to ascertain on your website. Well, what was presented was please stand by. I am asking the Board of Education, is there a type of censorship in place to silence our seniors? And remember, okay, I don't know, we are the backbone of Palm Coast. We pay taxes. I hate to say this, and we pay your salary, okay? I don't mind, but you're working against us. We should work together. We should work together. Has the board ever investigated the amount of building permits submitted in the building department for future home building? Thousands and thousands of houses. Builders have, okay, this means more families in Palm Coast. This simply means also that there's a need for more activities for the people to enhance their physical activity and exercise. Therefore, additional pool, will be required in the future. Is that part of your master plan as additional schools, or are you gonna still cut back? What happened to the past modular building that was removed? That was the same building that could have been renovated and used today for what you wanted to do. Is that part of your plan? Instead of removing the exercise equipment from the existing building, why not look into the future? Replace a modular, on the modular site, a new modular structure. Not rent it, buy it, okay? Does this make sense? I don't know. Lastly, as a result of the future increase in population coming to Palm Coast, okay, you should talk about or investigate a 50-meter pool with a springboard. All you need is one little joker, beautiful little joker, who could be a champion or to represent the Olympics. That's all you need is one, okay? Now, how do you pay for this? Very simple. You got impact fees, you've got taxes, and guess what? You got grants. We, the seniors, have done the heavy lifting our entire lives. We are looking for tranquility and respect from the board.
Okay.
We have never used the educational systems, I'm sorry, to pay this. Now, more importantly, the physical fitness of people here. These people go to the pool, go to their doctors twice a year, not 10 times a year. I could give you 50 push-ups right now.
Okay.
There's people also, no, I'm done, I'm not done, okay? There's people that come from Europe here,
Sir.
who were in concentration camps,
Sir.
hello,
Sir.
okay? They want to live and be happy, that's it. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
All right.
I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Thank you, God bless.
Can we get another one?
One more
Yeah,
speaker,
okay.
Robert Boros, Belter Swim and Racket
There you
Club.
go.
Oh, I'm not good at putting things together, so my wife wrote something out for me. So I'll just have to say what she wrote down. We are dismayed and to learn about the Flagler schools are considering removing support for the Belter Swim and Racket Club. This facility provides a much-needed outlet for Flagler citizens. With the pool, sauna, gym, workout equipment, and space, it provides vital services to the community. In addition, the school swimming and synchronized swimming teams periodically have worked out in the facility pool. In addition, there are no private membership gyms that have a swimming pool and offer swimming in the area. While the Palm Coast Community Center has a swimming area, it's more difficult to get to and has more limited parking. I look forward to talking to you. Okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One more speaker, Miss
What?
Daisy Henry.
Okay.
Apologize, she
Miss Henry.
asked me to add her on.
I'm not used to y'all gadgets, so I did went there. Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Board members. Y'all know what I'm here about, the Carver Gym. We were, I have some questions that need to be answered. We need to know what direction that we are going in. We're here for a time for the LIA to be revised. And even for the job description, when I first come forth with the job descriptions, when Elijah left, they changed the job description to a higher level. Now they've changed the job description back for a lower level. So the question is, do this board just change job description when they feel like it, or when they want to put a person in a position, or whatever? And so these kind of things that we hear and we see. Okay, you're supposed to inform the board. Mr. Raggedale's on the board. They met one time and we have to provide the LIA. And I've been asking the question, and nobody seems to know what's going on. And we are sitting there, we don't know where we're at and what direction that we're going in. So we need, I want to know, is our board going to continue, or are we going to phase out? That's a question that need to be, we are the governance board. And if we meet, whatever guides our regulation, we don't have anything to go in because the bylaws don't seem to be enforced. So, I mean, that's a question that was raised by the new board members. So, and my question is that, you know, we don't wanna, how you say, lose what we got. And the head count for the programs and stuff, the league that was there, they haven't been there 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't asked the question because they say I'm in the business, my nose. But I do stick my nose in. But I heard they was at Matanzas. So why, our kids not gonna be able to get to Matanzas without the parents. So why can't the Carver Gym house these children that it's just in walking distance? See, so now there's some questions that need to be raised. I'm not trying to put nobody staff, but I'm local, I live there, and I see a lot of things, and a lot of questions need to be raised. And communication, we talked about that is a problem that we have. We were talking about getting a kiosk, whatever, but before. So, but these questions we need to ask, and I may not answer them now, but we've been going along a long time with this. So the Carver Gym is my pet baby, and like I said, we need to know some answers about what's going on. And I'm not representing nobody, I'm asking a question, but I am on a lot of boards. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move off of public comment onto resources and supports, number 7. 7.01, request board approval for Imagine Charter School financials. Ms. Warmack, I guess you and, I don't know.
Good afternoon, Chair Cero, board members, and superintendent middle staff. We're here to answer any questions you may have on resources and support 7.01 to 7.08.
Does anybody have questions in 7.01, the Imagine School financials? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to 7.02, request board approval of purchases over 10,000. Questions? I have a couple. Sure. Okay, I see that we must have a contract. Is it a contract we have with computer repairs for all our?
Can you tell me what page you're on?
Page 3.
Okay.
There's a computer repairs. There's a lot of money spent there.
Who's the vendor?
I don't know. I wrote it down here.
Oh, repairs of student MacBook.
Yeah, MacBooks, you see it?
Yeah, Mr. Deason, can you come up and speak to that? This is one of the ESSER grant ones on page 3, MMI.
That's an open PO where we're using ESSER funds. It was part of the technology grant. I believe it was ESSER 2.
Right.
And they were to repair damaged, that would be iPads.
Right, so the families get charged, correct? For when they have to repair
For a
broken
portion,
computers? Yeah, they get charged. Where does that money go?
That goes into another fund that helps offset those
Okay,
costs.
so
So
I'm
this
just
was an
saying it does.
opportunity to
I
leverage.
wanna make sure that, that's all.
It's all kept in a separate bank account for technology.
Just, and so that goes, yeah, because I want to make sure that, because I've had to pay some of it sometimes. Make sure that it goes into, to help offset
So if
some of
you-
these costs.
Correct, and here's the
Okay.
connection to it. Previous to COVID, if you recall, we had a technology fund that was paid. So you had a free or reduced lunch price, you had a standard price. Those went in, that helped offset the cost of those repairs. It was kind of it was set up as our own kind of insurance fund for those repairs. There's a copay for those families based off of the damage to the device.
Because I knew we had something we were paying.
We have not charged that fee to any families since prior to COVID. So when we had the opportunity to utilize some of those ESSER dollars where most districts were buying devices, we were able to leverage those to make those opportunities for our parents and families. So
Yeah, that works.
those pieces are still in place. This offsets those costs.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
I have
Yeah.
a question also.
All right, who's going here? Go ahead.
Okay,
Will?
I'll go. The one CDW government, it says annual renewal of staff and student help desk software. What exactly is that software used for?
That runs our technology infrastructure. That's our ticketing system or help desk system.
Okay, so that sounds a lot like functionality that Let's Talk has as well. It sounds like that was kind of the feature that we're using in Let's Talk as the ticketing system for things. I'm just wondering, have we ever done the technology?
No.
Okay.
It's very different. This is an IT application specific. This is where our help desk runs. So if there are any repairs for computers that are put in, that's where that's logged. It's where all of our inventory for all of the equipment across the district is housed. It's where our SOPs are all housed. It's where time and tracking is all housed. So every single device in our technology inventory is in there. It has all of that information that aligns with any purchase information, any repair information, who that device is assigned to, if it was brought back in for repair, pushed back out. It's a life cycle management for all of our IT, including hardware and software.
All right, we had another question?
I just wanted more of a description on the phonics-based readers. What exactly that is for all the elementary schools.
Ms. Moore, is that something you can speak to? That's also through the ESSA? Oh, sure.
Good afternoon. The phonics-based readers, we purchased a program called GEOS, which aligns with our Foundations, which is our Tier 1 program for systematic phonics instruction. So those are decodable readers that allow us to take the phonics instruction into text. So application of those skills that we're teaching.
Okay, is that it? All right, there are no more questions then for, thank you. That we're going to request board approval for purchases over 10,000. Any questions? Take a look.
Going on to 7.03.
All right.
Vendor payments.
Request board approval for vendor payments. Yes, page, there are 9, I'll check it. We paid, I'm just curious, we paid $10,000 to Flagler Cares. What was that for, a grant or something to that effect? Do we know?
Do you have the check?
I don't. That's what I'm trying to find out. Vendor payments, 703. Just stuck out to me. Let me see. That one.
323.
Which one is it?
833.
833.
Yes, 323 is check number.
Okay.
Mr. Ducey, this is for the LINC annual software licensing. Is that something you can speak to, or is that somebody else?
So Flagler Cares, we use Flagler Cares as an opportunity to outsource our students for mental health. So when our students are in need of mental health services and they are going to be referred out, Flagler Cares is the organization within our community that helps to connect those families with those services. $10,000 is what we pay. A lot of those dollars are around customer.
Hold on for a second. Hold on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If we could just take a pause for anyone else who would like to leave so district staff could
Yeah,
share
we got
the
it.
information back to our board. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Okay, now we can hear you.
So those dollars around the creation, maintenance of the platform from our side, the custom reports that we need in order to report back to the state, that is what those dollars are used towards.
I think they also help with grant writing for mental health services.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about, this grant, was it grant, how that actually
They
was for?
coordinate actually a tremendous amount of our mental health services.
Yes, they do.
Okay. That's all that I had. All right, we're up to 7:04, detention of inventory. Deletion, yeah. You know, it's good to see we're still getting rid of those old computers. We must have a lot of them. I don't know where you keep them all. They keep on coming.
This is coming in from the school inventories as well.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. All right, 7.05, request for approval of finance budget amendments. Questions? Nope. Okay, 7.06, request board approval of professional development travel. Hearing nothing, we'll go to 7.07, request board approval of district financial statements.
And I just want to note one item on here on page 2. We have received the first January payment for our sales tax, which is to be shared with our charter school. This is the first payment since the renewal. And I have inserted a separate column there. It's the one right next to the sales tax, where you can see how much money we have paid out to them. And that will continue for the monthly and quarterly payments.
The $38,000?
Yes. So the full amount we received was a $603,000, and then out of that, $38,000 came.
Is that percentage, or how does that work?
It's based on a percentage of their FTE versus the total district.
FTEs, okay, great.
Could we ask the public to
stop chatting?
Be
Yeah.
respectful
Yeah,
to the business
Yeah.
meeting?
I know you want to be here, and we'd like it that you're here. Could you just keep the noise level down so we can hear? Okay, thank you. All right.
So it's, right now it's about 6.7% of the total that they get. How that's calculated is based on the February FTE count for the rest of this year. And then the same way with our FEFP payment starting in July, it'll be based on their prorated percentage from the FTE forecasting, and then it gets adjusted throughout the year.
So next year, Patty, where's the 2 mil that they'll be, not the 2 mil, sorry.
The 1.5.
The 1.5 mil.
So, waiting for that to
the
go through
calculation be the
legislation.
same?
It will not be the same. What I'm seeing right now from legislation that I think is gonna hold up is out of our 1.5 mils, our debt service that comes out of there will be removed first, and then the portion that the charters get for PICO will be taken out. And then what I've seen is it will be stepped up. The calculation after that will be the prorated portion of their FTE, but it's hoping this goes through. If it goes through, it will be 20% steps in each year. So it won't be fully in effect until 5 years. Several years ago, if you remember, they did get a portion of our 1.5. It was a very drastic sudden decision made in legislation, and it was a huge hit to all school districts right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I think this.
I think the 5-year pathway.
Right. And we'll know more about that at the next board meeting. The legislation will be done, so we'll be able to talk more about that.
Anything else you'd like to share? Concerns, questions? Hearing none, then we'll go to 7.08, out-of-state travel. Any questions? Looks like
I'm
it's
gonna
fully
have
paid for.
Ms. Kalara come up.
Yeah, that looks like it's a free trip.
Do you want to just give
Wanna
a brief,
explain it?
a brief explanation?
Hi, board members, Chairman Sparrow, Superintendent Middlestat. Yes, this is a full expenses paid trip, educational trip to Kentucky. This is a annual forum that the NIGP hosts every year throughout the country. various locations. As president of the local chapter of the national organization, my chapter pays all my expenses to go, not only to attend, to represent the chapter, but also the school board as well too.
That's good. That's good. Very good. That should be fun. Okay, any questions? All right, moving along then, we're going down to academic services. We tabled 9.01, we are going to 9.02, social studies textbook adoptions. Ms. Ferrer. Oh, no, that's not Ms. Ferrer.
It's not?
No, how about that?
My apologies. She had a emergency family situation that she
fine.
had to take care of. Board chair, Sarah, board members, Ms. Middlestat. I'd like to bring you an update as far as the progress on our social studies textbook adoption. And as I discuss our plan, I'll orient you to our timeline found on the instruction materials page in our website. The timeline aligns with our statutory requirements as well as for our instruction material adoption. The instruction materials under consideration are available for public review by our parents and the residents of Flagler County. And we're opening up our second window that we mentioned earlier this year. And that window is going to start tomorrow, May 3rd, located in the Teaching and Learning Office at the Government Building, GSB. And those materials will be available from 9 to 2 each day. It's also been shared out as far as on our media pages, Facebook, and pushed out through social to let people know that it's available. One thing we did learn from our last round of reviews is while we offered evening events, no one participated in those. However, we saw them accessing the digital information at all hours, and those digital materials will be available as before. And so I can appreciate and understand not wanting to come back to the GSB at night or whatever, and so parents availed themselves to take advantage and review and look at the materials online, and we're going to make sure that happens again.
Can I just ask a question, Jeff? So when they do that, is there a way to capture any feedback other than like the clicks or time spent or you know what a typical report might share?
Great question. We capture that information and we make them available, the rubrics and information for them to complete up, but it's not required.
Right.
And so while we do capture the number of information as far as people looking at things, it does not require them to fill out the rubric and information. So just to be aware of that.
I wonder, is it possible to create like some forced responses? If you want to access well, I guess you can't really do that.
No, because people,
you don't want, yeah.
People are allowed to look at things without having to actually respond, and so we have to respect that side of it as well.
Yeah.
And we had people who came in to the GSB who availed themselves of the materials physically, but chose not to do the rubric or chose not to do the other pieces, and that's their right as well.
Okay.
We obviously welcome their feedback and information, but we can't require that of them. So the second public review will begin, which is above and beyond the requirements, but giving the public additional time to review the materials. Our hope was that by this time this year we would have had the approved adopted list. We do not have that yet. They met as of April 21st when Ms. Farrer was at the state meeting. They said, well, we have until the end of April to provide that. We're on track. Today's May 2nd. We don't have that yet, but our hope is it's going to come soon. And so we feel like we need to prepare for that. And so by doing that, we can still move forward and get that information together and be prepared so that when the state does release it and we prioritize our itemize as far as our ranking, our choices, we'll be able to avail ourselves of that and then be able to move forward fairly quickly for the board to make some decisions on that. As far as there will be another public comment review opportunity just like we had in February, and we've already begun the process of formulating our committees. And the committees are made up of teachers, administrators, parents from the schools, and they'll be holding meetings beginning after the 20-day window, and there'll be school grade level meetings, so an elementary, a middle, and a high, May 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And all this information is available on our sites as well and provide that to them. And this will follow public comment and the recommendation materials. And our hope is by June 6th, we'll be able to provide the board the opportunity for the approval process and then launch our 30-day period for contesting the materials, which is by statute. As we move forward, there's a number of factors we're trying to involve in this. Number one, we're trying to avoid an instructional gap year. That's a cost of about $70,000 to our district. That's really not covered, right? We get an allotment each year of for instructional materials, and if we go into a gap year, we have to use those dollars to purchase, and we cannot purchase those dollars non-approved items, right? Another factor that we have is we know that K-5 is changing associated materials, so it's not going to be for next year, so we cannot use non-approved items, right, for the next year. And so that's another reason for us to move forward. And to address that, should it delay a little bit into the next year, we can shift our standards to still cover the standards, but cover the citizenship and those other pieces and components for K-5, where lessons are already developed and approved by the state of Florida. So that can kind of help cover our gap, should that happen at the beginning of the year. In addition, middle and high schools, they have the same resource. Those are approved already as far as just knowing those vendors are. And so we can use those materials and be okay with that piece of it. And like I said, the savings is about $70,000. In addition, we're trying to avoid a 2-year gap on science. There's over 30 districts that are considering doubling up on an adoption. It's not my position. I don't think it's a good one because of you've got 2 core content areas you're trying to push out the same year. And when you look at your elementary schools, those are the same teachers you're doubling down on. And so by doing this, we can avoid the second gap year for science, which is also a significant cost savings for us in the district. So we dealt with this last year a little bit with math when the list came out, that there was a disruption, but most vendors were back in alignment with the state within a few weeks. And so we feel like we can still pivot to that and make those adjustments and shift to make sure our students and our staff have in a timely manner the information. Our vendors have committed to us that whichever we go with, that as soon as the approved list happens and we move forward, we'll have teacher manuals and instructional pieces for our staff almost immediately. So they can get those in their hands and have that as a resource to begin planning over summer, should we move that direction.
Yeah. I know it took us a long time to get our math books.
Yeah.
And our high school kids were
There was an
roughing it.
additional expense of about $10,000 that we incurred just in making copies for our K-2 resources for them during that transition to try and get our books on time. So I think we have a little bit more planning now ahead of this to be prepared, if Ms. Middlestat's direction is more, to be in a position to hopefully better cope with that circumstance for next year.
Good.
Is there anything that the board needs that we'll be approving, or do we need to be on standby for an emergency meeting? Like, is there anything that we need to be on standby for to make sure things can go as well as possible?
Certainly, great question. No, we'll follow the process of our board meetings. We have to by law do the 20-day. We have to by law do the 30-day. When we come to the board during the next meeting that we have that's scheduled for this, we'll provide the board the list of materials that we're recommending for the board to approve. And at that point, you would make that recommendation, and then we proceed with that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Any questions about the next consent items?
Okay. Yeah. Next, we're going on out-of-state travel, future problem solvers. They're going to the international competition to UMass. We heard about this last meeting. Any chance, I mean, we're going to be able to raise enough money to cover that expense for all 40
Yes,
plus
ma'am.
chaperones
They're
and
hard at
everything?
work.
They
I
do
can-
every year.
All right, that's a biggie. That's a lot, though.
You know what, though, our community's great.
Yeah.
And
Very
they
supportive.
jump behind this stuff.
Good.
It's exceptional work by the students and staff.
All right. And you've got the FEC track summer trip. That's for cross-country.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Any questions on that? No. And the last one is the SGA leadership to South Florida. They go every year. Any questions on that? Okay. Looks good.
Thank you, board.
Yep, thank you. All right, going down to number 11, Human Resources Services Consent. 1101, request board approval for personnel items. Okay, we don't have anything on here, so.
It's constantly being updated, so.
Chairman Sorrow, board members.
Yep.
Superintendent Middlestat.
So, we're constantly just keep going with our personnel report. We'll see it more at for the next school board meeting.
Yes. The difference in this report, just to kind of point this out, is that we did intent surveys with all faculty and staff. And based on that, you know, the new staffing kind of gets built. So if you see in the portion on resignations, if you look at effective date, 5/30, we're already placing these resignations on file now, so we have the position codes. For example, when we had the job fair last week, it allowed us to advertise those positions so that we could keep moving forward to prepare for the next school
So we're
year.
ahead of the game.
Yes. In the appointment section, you see that it's blank there because folks that we have picked up either from the job fair or the through transfers from school to school have not been placed yet because that effective date would cross the contract year. So we did not put it on this personnel agenda, but it will be on the subsequent ones.
Questions, Dr. Conklin?
So 2 questions. So by the time the board meeting comes around, the budget impact information for the new positions will be there?
Yeah, because the new staffing in the budget through Patty will already be. We've had the initial staff meetings with all the principals and departments, and so those will be there.
Okay, so wherever we have new, there should be a budget impact.
Yes,
Okay.
if the new is a new position as far as in their allocation, but not everyone will be. A lot of them will be replacing folks that are actually from the resignation section.
So the other question that I have in regards to the teacher resignations, that's a pretty long list. So I'm curious, and I understand they're, you know, with intent. How many of these folks were possibly non-reappointed?
This is not the non-reappoint list.
I know that, but I'm curious how many of them, let me see if I can ask this question the right way. Do we know how many of them were highly effective?
Do I know how many were highly effective? I do not know how many were highly effective.
Okay.
Highly effective is not the only determining factor on staying in the organization. We have effective folks as well that stay.
Well, and I'll come and visit with you for a little bit.
Okay.
But I know that sometimes in the past, we've had issues where we have given folks the opportunity to resign instead of being non-appointed. Non-appointed being that we do have and have had in the past highly effective teachers who were identified as non-appointed for the wrong reasons, and I want to ensure that that practice is not continuing with our administrative staff.
Yes, I hear you. As far as this year, the principals are still putting together, tentative assignments and non-reappointment lists. And the date by contract is 2 weeks prior to the last day of the teacher contract. So that's.
So when would we see those lists?
We'll have the actual list on May 16th. So it'll start to roll into the personnel action.
If I'm hearing you correctly, none of these people were given the option to resign or be non-appointed?
No, these were people, actually, the intent survey was probably a month earlier.
They said, I'm not returning. Do we know the reason why they're not returning?
We have been collecting the list of the reasons why. I know that we have some of the spreadsheet data, and we can send it to you, what we have.
I would
send it to each
that.
board member.
Yeah. And at the end of the year, once the school year is concluded and we have the appointments and the non-appointments and people who are resigning and all of that, and our exit survey information together in the best way that we can, will we be able to get a report out on the exit survey results to identify any possible trends?
Yes, we'll give you as complete an exit survey as we have, and we'll share that both the initial out with you guys, and we'll share. As I think we talked before, that we're due for a full kind of airing of everything we've got going on in HR.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Weird follow-up question on that. When you send us those details, I assume the names will not be included.
Well, it's all public record.
Technically, it's a public record, but I mean,
So if a teacher exits and decides to give us feedback, that feedback is tied to their name and could be put out on a publication.
by state statute, anything that we generate here in this institution ends up being a public record. So unless they send it to us anonymously.
Do we have that? Dr. Conklin, I feel like you've brought this up before, of gathering better exit feedback. Do we have that option of allowing an anonymous option? A lot of people are private people and maybe don't want to give feedback if it potentially could be blasted
Yes.
publicly.
For example, if you decide to give us a letter of resignation, stapled to your exit path, obviously your name is on that. We have an exit survey tool that, you could QR code and send us your survey, and we're not tracking that unless you decide to put your name on the survey.
So they're able to respond to the survey in an anonymous fashion?
If they walk out the door with it. Now, if they do a hand survey and hand it to the bookkeeper, it's probably coming to us with the same path as their resignation path.
At the end of the day, we want the feedback,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to make sure we're removing any stumbling blocks.
Just a side note, I see that Mr. Beckett is finally retiring. I don't know how we fill those shoes, honestly.
You don't.
Oh, you don't, because, wow.
Where do you see the retirement?
It's under resignation, but I know he's retiring. It's in Beckett.
Why would that be under a resignation?
That's where it's at.
I thought Ed was retiring.
He is.
I will have to take a second look at that one. It could depend on years of service. Sometimes I'm retired, but I haven't been in service long enough to be considered an FRS retirement.
He's been in
But
service.
I will-
He's been in service as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
He doesn't
That's
fit
not
that
it.
bill.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But maybe you
No.
can just double
So
check
we'll-
that.
we will
Yeah,
absolutely-
yeah, I know he's retiring. It is under resignation now. Okay. Hey, all right. Any other questions? Then we'll go to 11.02, request board approval for a new teacher on special assignment job description. Mr. Roulette.
And that, this is not new. This is what we brought forward at the last workshop as far as the 3 special assignment job descriptions: behavior interventionist, the school assessment coordinator, and the dean of students. There have been no changes since the last time I brought that forward.
Questions? Seeing none? We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going down to 14. Approval of updated FCEA instructional salary schedule.
Good
Ms.
afternoon
Moore,
again.
Ms. Wormack.
Yes. There's not an attachment here because we have to still go back to the table. What happened with this item is DOE has asked us to make a change to our salary schedule. So we are planning to go back to the table with FCEA, I think in a week. And then once we do that and see if we can get on board with what DOE is asking, then we will bring that back to the board in a 1 o'clock meeting in May for approval at that night meeting.
So it's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. We got it.
God bless
All right,
you.
Bless you. Thank you. All right, so we're going on then to technology and innovations.
Okay, thank you.
15.01.
Patty, you're on this.
Yeah, that was quick.
You're on this as a presenter, Miss Patty.
You might as well stay if you want. Citizens Oversight Committee.
It's a team effort.
Nice try.
It is a team effort.
I was out of here.
PC, Ms. Phillips and Ms. Warren.
Good afternoon, Board, Superintendent. I am excited to be here this afternoon to share with you our update for our Citizens Oversight Committee. We put this out to advertise back in, February 23rd. And we left that open, so we went through and advertised that out. We put it on our website. It was on our social media multiple times. We spoke to it several times during community events, inviting folks to our website to put in their application. So again, to kind of recap, our half-cent sales tax was renewed back in November, and part of that commitment, this board approved the Citizens Oversight Committee with the intention to bring forth 7 to 11 community members that represent the areas that was identified within the half-cent sales tax. So we have this before you. We have 7 applicants. I'm sorry, yes, we have 11 applicants. Thank you, Teresa. And with prospective backgrounds in planning, business, finance, technology, law, engineering, construction, security, and education. And of the 11, 4 of those prospective members are also parents of current Flagler School students. So the 11 folks who put their name in for under the application meet the letter of the law, so to speak, of what we put together as far as the guidelines for the COC.
Were there any folks that were not accepted?
No, this is
11 people applying.
all of the applicants that we received. Any questions?
No, I just thank all of you, and thank you, Kathy. I think this was a smart move this go-round, and pulling together a community oversight committee as kind of an independent body to look at, track, ensure the appropriate spending of those dollars. So thank you for that. Thank you.
I agree. All right, we good? Looks like we're...
Board, do you have any direction? Are you wanting to have it be a 7-member board or an 11-member board? You do have 11 applicants. Do you want to have it be all 11? Do you want to?
I'm fine with the 11, as long as it's an odd number. I think we're fine.
I am too.
I'm fine with 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to confirm because you hadn't made a decision, so that's the only thing that was outstanding before you move this forward to be placed as a vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, 16, academic services. 16.01, comprehensive evidence-based reading plan. Ms. Frank.
Hello again.
Hello, hello.
We're just here to follow up, see if you had any questions or any feedback about our reading plan.
Anybody?
So I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
I was looking through, and I know maybe we don't name things, but are we using any of the Orton Gillingham pieces?
Yes, so it's very,
Sorry
sorry to interrupt you, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm just a huge fan, especially for those students dyslexic or any of those students who are phonetically struggling. I'm like phonetically deaf, so as a child, it was a very big deal for me.
Yeah.
And so talk to me a little bit about the interventions. I looked through the plan, admittedly searching for Orton Gillingham, but is there anything like that in the plan?
Yes, so Foundations, which is our Tier 1 program for our phonics and phonemic awareness instruction, is designed with an OG model.
Okay.
And additionally, Rewards, which is one of our Tier 2 and Tier 3 options for students in grades 3 all the way to 12 that have that deficit, is also an OG model.
Okay, great. So it's not just a K-3 opportunity, because a lot of times those kids get missed.
Yes.
And they're not truly identified. Sometimes they're never identified.
Exactly.
So it's not just K-3 and early. Okay, great.
And that's why a lot of the professional learning that we're designing around includes that secondary foundations, where Celeste and I collaborate with NAFAC. We collaborate with our state regional literacy director. We're even looking for decodable texts that are appropriate for middle school and high schoolers, because a lot of those are made for elementary, so you have to find that balance. So we're doing a lot of work there.
And we're training our teachers as far as we can across content areas with supporting those foundational skills, that multi-syllabic work.
Thank you.
We actually have a PL planned in July, and the ones that have signed up already, that just completed our reading endorsement classwork, are content area secondary teachers.
Perfect.
Or content area 4th and 5th grade teachers, because they recognize the need in science vocabulary and things like that.
Because a lot of those kids just get, and then in the middle school and the high
Yes.
school, they just.
Absolutely.
And it's a work in progress with the new BEST standards. They are more focused on that secondary foundational piece where they kind of were hidden in like a little teeny piece of a standard before, so they have really brought it forward, so it is a work in progress we've been working on the last year and a half.
That's good. Forgive me if this is not the right time for this question, but the summer reading program that was housed at Rimfire.
Yes.
Two-part question, is that happening again this summer? And do we have any metrics from the impact of that program from last summer?
Yes, so we have 2 programs for summer acceleration and summer reading camp. This year it's at Old Kings, but both of them were at Rimfire. I think we do a rotation for facilities purposes, to be fair to
I think
schools.
you guys have mentioned this before, so
No, you're fine. So summer reading camp is specifically what was mentioned in our SERP, which is for 3rd grade students who score a level 1, which is significantly below grade level. So those students are required by statute to receive intensive intervention. So we run a 6-week program, a 6-hour reading block, and those students are given, we use the FAST data that they're actually having today, and then they have 2 different opportunities throughout the summer program to correct portfolio data on all the best standards, and we look at pre-post. Last year we had a 72% graduation rate for students that were promoted to 4th grade with a good cause exemption. Previously it was down in the 50s, so we're excited to see that growth. This year we're expecting it to get closer to 80.
Do we provide any kind of transportation for that program?
We do. All transportation is provided for all families.
Yep.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Of course.
Again, I remember
no, it's
hearing
fine.
about it,
Mhm.
it's such an important piece, so.
And just to brag on what else we're doing, we have a secondary program which is actually not statute-based. It's more of what Flagler wants to do to move our students, and we're calling that summer acceleration. So we're trying to catch kids before they get to that level 1 in 3rd grade. So our 1st and 2nd graders is what we're really focusing on as a secondary program.
Nice.
Also very phonics-based, and we're adding a little bit of math preview and review just to support all the content areas. And then I'm pulling in 3rd grade level 2s. Because in that reading camp program, level 2s cannot be invited, but they're still not performing on grade level. So we're giving them that opportunity to get accelerated some to hopefully start on grade level in the fall in 4th grade.
Oh, smart.
Great, thank you.
And transportation is provided for that as well as food services for breakfast and lunch for our kiddos.
That's great.
All right. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, gonna move on to 17, operational services. 17.01, request board approval for award of accompanying contract for request for proposals 2304P, food and grocery distribution services.
Hi,
That's a
board.
mouthful.
Chair Massaro, Superintendent Middle Staff.
All right, here we go. You had one.
So Angie and I worked together to put out an RFP, request for proposal, for food and grocery distribution services. We did only receive 1 proposal in, which is not abnormal given what's going on, which Angie can describe to you. And the committee recommended to approve, that we met to review, just for conformance to everything, even though we only received 1. And the committee agreed to move forward with awarding to Benny Keith Company.
So what's going on? Yeah. So what's going on?
Most of you know we've been part of a consortium for longer than I've been here, so longer than 20 years. Part of it was at one time 30 districts in the state of Florida that all banded together for purchasing power for food and beverage and supplies. COVID hit and it really demolished our supply chain. I mean, you saw in the grocery stores the same thing. The same shortages you saw there when you went for your personal groceries were the same challenges we were having. And in that time, our longtime supplier, U.S. Food Service, decided to exercise their opt-out option in our contract. They had been our supplier for ever, at least 25 years, maybe 30, and so decided they weren't going to bring us food and supplies any longer. So that left us as a group of 30, don't quote me on the number, but I think we were 32 districts at the time, in a lurch with no suppliers, distributors willing or able to take on that business. So we've spent, that was going into the 2021 school year. We've spent, Cisco did come through for the group of us that remained, or the number of districts that remained. I think it was 29 as we moved forward. And it was an emergency contract. We were allowed to do that under USDA for a year just so that we could get food for our students. And that has been, we were not allowed to renew that emergency contract, so we were left in another, with another situation this past year with a group of us that remained and not knowing who was going to bring us food and supplies again. The group has been phenomenal. We have been blessed to be part of it for as long as we've been part of it, but the purchasing power that we once had is a hindrance to us at this point in time. So this company, Benny Keith, they don't do any school food distribution in the state of Florida, but they do it in other states. So they are a national company. They do have K-12 experience in other states. They just they're interested here. They approached us months before I was ready to speak to them, to be quite frank with you. Came and introduced themselves. We have local representation in our district. There's parents of our students that work for this company. So they approached us months and months ago. I believed we were going to be able to continue on with an emergency type situation with Cisco at the time. So for a couple months I just said, nice to meet you, I'll take your card.
Right.
And then the time came when we didn't see the opportunity to go on with Cisco in the group as it is now, as it were. We started conversations with them, and fast forward to now, here is where we are, sitting in front of you with an RFP.
So we put the RFP out.
We did.
Advertised the RFP, and this was the only group that we've got. So when you say it became a hindrance to be part of this larger kind of consortium, is that because they were, the buying power actually then became a hindrance because you were so big and there wasn't somebody that could handle something that big?
Correct,
Okay.
that many districts. And the other thing that's a hindrance for us is we're not all of the districts don't touch one another. Monroe County is the furthest south district that is part of the consortium, and then it goes through the Panhandle. I'm not sure what the furthest west district is, but there's just nobody has that capacity to manage the entire state like that, and they don't all have distribution houses and places that can get to all the districts that are part of our consortium. So that was a piece of it as well.
So, may I? So, I'm just curious, are you nervous that we are the first, are we the first or the only district in the state of Florida?
We are the first.
Okay.
And so far only as far as I know.
Does that make you nervous about distribution centers, about access, about?
No.
Okay. Tell me a little bit why.
I'm nervous from the standpoint of it is completely new. My entire tenure here has been with a consortium
company,
with US Foods until the last couple of years. So that, the newness of it and the unfamiliarity of it is a little nerve-wracking. But we've had enough conversations and I've done enough research that I don't see another option, number one, at this point in time. I don't see any other option for us. And number two, I believe in this company. Before we went down, we had to not have conversations anymore because of the process. We had enough conversations and did enough research that I believe that they can take care of our business.
Okay.
We are not the only district that's dropped out of the consortium. There are 3 or 4 others that are in the process of it. And I would like to add, just for this meeting and your information, Volusia County was one of the districts that was in our consortium. They still are. I say was because we will no longer be a member after June 30th. This takes us out of that umbrella. Volusia County put out a distribution RFP for the remainder of the group, and they got absolutely 0 responses for distribution. So the only people that did respond were manufacturers, and that was because the way they wrote the bid was such that manufacturers could do direct distribution for districts that have warehouses and could take bulk deliveries into their warehouse and then do internal distribution. We're not in that situation. So there is that opportunity for some districts with a few manufacturers, but nobody in distribution responded to their request.
And the last question, and then I'll be quiet, is we've talked about this over the years, but given that it's kind of a little bit of a new day and new circumstances and whatnot, is there any opportunity to work more closely with our local farmers and access to what we have here, or it's just not big enough?
Yes, potentially there is an opportunity to work closer with our local farmers, but there's not, in Flagler County only, there's only so many crops that they produce
Right.
At enough of a supply for us to think.
Potatoes at every meal.
Potatoes and cabbage.
Potatoes and cabbage.
Potatoes and cabbage at every meal.
I'm on
So-
their, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm on their website. I'm just trying to figure out like where they're located, where's the food coming from.
Gainesville is where we will. Distribution is from Gainesville. Their
The
warehouse
company is
in
out of
Gainesville.
Texas is their headquarters, is out of Texas, but our distribution will be out of Gainesville.
Yeah, that's good, I suppose, so far. All right, any other questions?
I'm thinking.
I will add one more thing, just to give you another moment to think. Prior to where we are today as well, I had conversations with the North Florida Buying Group, which is another buying group, and they are serviced by Gordon Food Service, which is another heavy hitter. At the time, they were not willing to take us on. Gordon Food Service was not willing to add us to their group. The buying group was, but Gordon needed to be able to distribute to us.
What about like Sodexo? Is that not something they do?
They're not a distribution,
Okay.
no, that's more of a
More of
contract
a-
management
yeah,
company.
yeah.
And they have contracts, obviously, but
Yeah.
that's a different operational setup than we have.
Do we know anything about things like GMOs and hormones and, yeah, like, I know I'm getting like super deep, but.
As far as?
I guess just like the quality of the food and.
To be quite frank, we are at a point in time where we just need to get food, and we do have standards, we have USDA guidelines
Yeah, I was
that we
just
have to
gonna
follow.
say, they've gotta follow the national
There are
standards.
national standards, so we do follow those, that's regulatory, and we have no choice. To go better, to do a step above that, that is a goal, and I hope to get to that goal at some point, but we need to stabilize our supply chain to even be able to have those options. Because there are also there are many manufacturers are dropping out of the market that K-12 isn't as profitable as restaurants and other markets. So we've had a lot of manufacturers drop out or reduce their product line, several SKUs.
Wow.
So there are a lot of pieces to this that I'd be happy to share at a time that's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all these crazy stories about our food chain being dismissed and, you know, influence from other countries and stuff, but it's Texas, so hopefully it's not a problem.
And we did put out, part of the RFP was, we took what, let's say, goods we use now as far as the food and different products. And not only did they have the opportunity to provide pricing on those products, and it might have been Tyson chicken, let's say, chicken breasts. If they couldn't provide that, they had the opportunity to provide an alternative. And that went through with the whole nutritional value and everything that was reviewed by Stephanie and Food Service to make sure that it met the guidelines that we had to have. So it's not like we don't know what we're buying. We gave them a list of over about 150 plus items that we purchase on a regular basis.
With particular specifications with them.
Good question.
So make sure China's not.
No, Buy American is a huge provision that we have to follow with very little exception, so.
I have like a far out question, and you and I maybe just need to chat sometime because it's like curiosity. I think like of the medical industry, but just like hearing this kind of stuff, is there like this post-pandemic, like do we need to have some kind of summit on like school districts moving forward post-pandemic? Like I don't know what itemized list it was on, but I've already talked with Corey about like $750,000 being spent at Rimfire for like weatherproofing, and which is an awesome job that needs to get done, but like $750,000, you know, because there is potentially a labor, you know, a services shortage. There's shortages, you know, like, so I think you're picking up what I'm laying down, but I mean, man, we've got, you know, educational choice dollars, and we've got like a whole new world of, whether it's teacher shortage or whether it's just suppliers. Like, is there just, are we as Flagler schools prepared for what is kind of starting to feel like this new world? So I'm just wondering if this is part of a larger, is that like too flaky for me to ask? Do you know what I'm saying? It feels like there's, like, are we in crisis? Like, are we prepared for what's ahead of us?
I think things are getting better, as we're kind of seeing with some things that we've been purchasing lately. Things are coming in quicker. Overall, yes, we're affected just as you are personally affected. So, you know, things might take a little bit longer to receive. Prices have escalated. And yes, it's completely different than things were pre-pandemic. There's not much option that we have, especially on, you know, the things that we need and the requirements to, whether it be repairs, maintenance, things like that, the supplies that are needed for that. So it's across the board.
It is. Well, I said to Corey, like, can we start getting our class into careers? Like, if there's $750,000 out there for like weatherproofing buildings, like, can we get our students trained on? like, are these local jobs that we need to start, you know, focusing on developing? But that's an aside. Anyway, thank you. It's like, wow, feeding our kids and one RFP, like, yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been yikes.
Yeah.
For a couple of years.
Thank you. I think we're good.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, 17.02.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before we move on to the next item, is it possible we could take a
5-minute break?
recess?
Yes, we may. We'll come back to 17:02 at mention, well, I guess we have to wait for the superintendent. Do we need to wait for the superintendent? Yes, we do. And our attorney. Yes. Oh, I didn't realize she left. And she was here last minute. I was like, oh, she's gone. You can't just eat one.
They know that we're. Yeah, I'm on the, I got a Z-Pack.
Exactly.
I'm
You
not.
know, they would.
Okay.
Next meeting. Good.
All right, now we're ready to get back on track here. We're at 17.02, request board approval for award and accompanying contract for invitation to bid for solid waste disposal, recycling, and roll-off services. That's exciting stuff. Here we go.
Another
Let's
necessity.
go.
It looks like at least we got some bids.
Yeah, we got some bids here. And boy, they're all over the place.
Right, right. So this, this invitation to bid went out for, obviously, solid waste pickup at schools, all the facilities. We do have recycling at, I believe, the majority of all of the schools as well. Roll-off services is more as needed. I believe custodial and plant services have permanent roll-offs located there that are picked up maybe monthly. And then if we have a project such as a construction project or such that's being done in-house, they would request a roll-off at that facility. We received 4 bids in, which is great. We are recommending award to FCC Environmental Services, who submitted the lowest bid out of all of them on our the weekly pickups. The tabulation that you have was done a little bit differently than we did on the previous bid, where it was done by location, precise school. This allows us more flexibility if we need to make changes to containers. We have those numbers right in front of us instead of having to go back out and ask for them. There was a little bit of an increase of maybe 5% from what we're currently paying to what these new prices will be. That's pretty good, expected. But overall, FCC is the new vendor who will be taking over the city of Palm Coast, I believe, as of June 1st or July 1st.
Yeah.
So they're making a presence, it seems, more in this area.
Will they be able to handle that and this?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure.
They're a
That's
big
more
company.
residential, yes. You know, that's gonna be the residential side of things.
I'm just surprised how the prices are all over the place, from $15.40 to $85. Wow, some companies are really out there.
The only real question that I had, I was curious about how the bid was kind of broken out. Because in my mind, I'm always thinking if you bundle services, sometimes it's cheaper. But I guess, can you share a little bit of the logic about separating out each of the, I guess?
The way that it is on here.
Yeah.
So they were provided in the bid, they saw every location that we currently have, as well as the frequency of pickups, the container sizes. So let's say Matanzas High School. Matanzas might have 3 8-yard containers 2 6-yard containers and a 4-yard container. They saw what they had, and they saw their current frequency of pickups. So they were able to kind of gauge how much we actually have. Yes, they're in the know of that. How many containers, what sizes. I'm hoping that in the long run, and the frequency.
Okay.
What I just didn't do is get them to price it based on a location and what they had. So yes, there are some locations that maybe a rare pickup 5 times a week. It was just easier to do it this way, so
Yeah.
that way, in the longevity of the contract, we have
So
those
it'll
prices up
probably
front.
more cost effective.
Correct.
Okay.
But they are, and I'm hoping that as we move forward with them and they pick up, we get more reporting back and we see, you know, they may say you only need 2 pickups a week versus 3.
Right.
Or upsize from a 6-yard 3 times a week to an 8-yard 2 times a week, and potentially some cost savings on that.
Okay.
Any questions? Any other questions? Concerns? Nope.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, 17.03. Belter Swimming Racket Club, David Freeman and Joshua Walker. Welcome, welcome. Welcome back.
Yeah, good afternoon, Board, Madam Chair, Superintendent Middlestat. The Board had asked us and directed the staff to make sure that the Belter Swim and Racket was on the agenda for the May 16th Board meeting, and so that the Board can take action. And we want to come to you and make sure that if there's anything else that the staff can provide to you to help you make that decision.
A lot of people have been asking about this bond. Is it somewhere where a copy could be sent to us?
It's not a copy. It is a book. It is a thick book. And it's in my office. It's.
I guess I just want to make sure we're not doing anything we shouldn't be doing.
I am happy to grab it so that y'all can see what bond we're talking about. Give me a moment.
So is there a bond remaining on this building?
Till 2030. Yeah,
August
that's what
1st,
it-
2030.
Going to 2030. We have to maintain
It
the
is a
facility.
part, it is as collateral for the bond that we refunded. So let me go grab it. Y'all can see it.
Christy, can you grab also or at least point in the direction of where the original paperwork was for?
It's in the archives.
Yes.
The deed?
Yeah.
I have a copy of that I could send to you.
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, would you do that? Okay, that would help us.
For the
Because a lot of people want to see that.
Yeah, so are you aware of any deed restrictions on the deed itself, or is it just the bond that's controlling that?
I am not aware of any deed restrictions. I don't recall seeing any on there. I think it's just the bond, but I will forward that to all the board members.
I think the original language said for educational and public use. I do recall.
I think
could be
that's in the
wrong,
bond, but
pretty
I'm not
sure.
sure it's in the deed, but I will
So
check.
maybe I'm getting I thought in the paperwork from ITT where it was actually donated to the school district,
Yeah.
it says that.
Okay.
But
I will
again, it would be
verify.
better to verify it and actually have it.
Yeah, and I don't know if this would be a question for Attorney Gavin, but some of the emails and some of the comments had spoken to there was a theory that there was an endowment that came with this pool to continue ongoing maintenance. I just want to get some clarity for the public, since that's been floated is that something out there that we're not tapping into to maintain this facility? Are you aware of anything of an endowment that was left?
I've never
to
even heard
support-
that.
No, me
Okay.
either.
No, sir.
Okay, there it is. Oh, it's 2 of them? Or is
Yeah,
it-
it's two bond
books.
volumes.
All right, so Christy, what the heck is in there?
What is in here
Yeah,
is.
give us the cheat sheet.
So it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of background on the various facilities, property that were utilized to support the bond refunding. So this bond is, the total amount is 42 million.
So Belterre Swim and Racket Club is only
43 million.
one
Yes.
of many.
Correct, 43,870,000. So we were refunding, we were rebonding, we were putting back out to nationally, the country, our bond, our government bond, municipal bond, for covering our various projects. Belterre Swim and Racket Club was one of the things. This government services building was tied up in it. The new schools were tied up in it. So our property, let's see, Buddyworth was tied up in it. So various, if you go in here, and so it's going to be descriptions of the property. It's going to be what we had previously held bonds on, because this wasn't the only bond. We also had another bond that we refied in 2015 that we just retired this year, 2020, last year? Next year. Or next year. We retired next year. So that was about 8 million for that one.
I don't have the original.
I think it was 8 million on that one. And so it was based upon that when it went out for purchase. It goes on the market, and the market's open. And it's literally, we are competing against other municipal bonds throughout the country. And it's based upon our fiscal soundness, you know, our ability to repay the monies back, et cetera. And within 30 minutes, our bonds were purchased. And so people who are owning these bonds, they could be California. It can be tied to various companies, various plans that people have. 401k plans could purchase this. It could be a variety of things could purchase this bond. And we are repaying it to the various bondholders.
Up until this moment, I thought we couldn't do anything with the property because ITT in the, am I saying the name right? When they gifted this to us, it was like, you have to keep it till 2030 or whatever. What I'm hearing now is it's a part of like a collateral thing. So it has nothing to do with the original ITT agreement.
No, it has to do with the refunding of the bond.
It
the
just
bond.
has to do with a bond.
Yes.
The bond.
It's part of the collateral.
It's part of the collateral that we put up property-wise.
And what my understanding is while it's not necessarily easy as it relates to collateral with bonds or whatever, we would as a school board have options.
You can attempt to carve it out.
Yeah,
yes.
there's just maneuvering that has
There's
to happen.
maneuvering that has to be done.
Okay.
We would have to work with our bond counsel on how we would carve that property out of the bond. You know, the likelihood of the willingness to carve out property from a bond that's being used as collateral, less likely earlier on in 2014, 15 when we refunded. Would they have been willing to do it? No, because we were just brand new. We are now 7 years away from being done.
And whatever we decide to do, so long as we maintain ownership of this property, nothing changes with this bond, right? We're just deciding on what we're using it for?
Okay. So here's the thing. Because it's tied to a municipal bond and to education, when it comes to, and our guidance of our bond counsel has been, when it comes to how we use it, primary utilization has to be towards our students because it's held by an educational entity. If we were a county, if we were a city, there wouldn't be those same constraints of you have to have students utilizing this property. This is property that, and it has not been designated as property. So for example, where Dave and maintenance are housed, that is not tagged as a facility where students are located. And so we try and maintain very little property where students are not, serviced. This building, we used to have students that were actually here because when we were running our Rise Up program, it wasn't Rise Up at that time, but when we were running our Rise Up program, alternative program downstairs, we did have students here. We do occasionally have students with our Flagler when they're taking their testing. Sometimes they do take it here. And so actually we do have some parts of this building occasionally used as student, but it is technically not on our SREF for being a student-centered building. So we have to be very careful when we bond it out because of the representations that we made to get people to purchase these bonds.
And I think that was your original question. I'm sorry, Christy, I think you asked about the bond.
I just know a lot of people have been asking and sending us emails, so I didn't really,
Yeah, so it's not like hiding it, this is a 2-volume bound document that anybody can come and take a look at it and read through it and see what it says, but.
All right, so at this point, you want directions from this board as to what to prepare for the next meeting. Is that what I'm getting?
Or if there's anything that we have not provided for you that you need in order to make your decision at the May 16th meeting, be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've reviewed this very thoroughly, at least from my opinion. There's been a wealth of information from the outset, and it's my view that we finally just decide on the direction, so that way, if it's the pleasure of the board to keep the membership facility, then we all work together to make it the best it can be, or if it's not, then we move on to a student-focused facility. But we just need to have direction to get somewhere, right? And I think that a vote on this would help all of us to finally have clarity on this enclosure.
Just a clarifying question to that, and Madam Chair, maybe this is a question for you. What is going to be the motion? Because this is so involved.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think that's the discussion right now.
What you said is kind of like, so what's going to be the motion?
Well, I mean, it potentially could be something, one could bring a motion to say, I make a motion to end operations as a membership facility and continue as a student-focused facility, and we would vote on that to see where. I'm just again, every one of us, any one of us could bring that motion. That's just as an example, or it could be on the opposite side of it, right? And we would have to vote on it. But I just we're never going to get anywhere on this until we clearly have consensus on where we stand as a board, on where we want to go forward as a membership or student focus. I think that's what we've kind of funneled this down to through all this conversation. These are the two options on the table. The community has spoken from the membership there, and they obviously are advocating to keep that. And there are other concerns that would say maybe that's not the most fiscally sound structure for Flagler schools for this facility. But again, that will be for us to individually decide and vote on.
And once we motion something, we can discuss it, right? Like what it's going to look like.
We just have to open the floor.
After a
That
second.
opens the floor,
Right.
yes. Dr. Conklin.
So just a couple of things. Just to share. So obviously, my perspective on this hasn't changed over the years at all. So it's been fairly consistent all along, right? No big surprise there. But I would say, a couple of different things. I think it would be beneficial, Christy, for everybody on the board and for the community to have that. I don't know if it's a letter of intent. I don't know what exactly the name of the document is, but it's basically the original ITT document with the language of the intent when the donation was made. So I don't know if that's in the deed or the agreement or what, but I think that that would be beneficial for everybody to actually have. The other would be, if this is a part of the bond deal, and maybe you can send us a follow-up email, it might be beneficial for us to know how complex is it to break this out if we were not going to utilize it anymore in this fashion and we were changing the functionality of it to the point where it's not part of the bond bundle anymore. Like, how complex is that? What's the process? I would recommend a couple of different things. One, I think it needs to go back into the adult ed budget. The hours of operation, if we were to keep it open, I think we've put it in the position of not being successful. We've intentionally not advertised. The hours, I didn't realize, I should have realized, but I didn't realize that during the week we were closing the club and the pool and everything at 3 p.m. on every other day. That escaped me. Patty, who came and talked to us today, was a previous employee. And so with Fitness One closing, and it was the only other facility around that had a pool, is this something we should be actively really marketing more to our employees and adjust those hours so that people after work could use the facility? Because a lot of our teachers are not even getting off until after 3. Closing the pool on Sundays, I remember when we had this discussion, I had an issue with it then, I have an issue with it now, especially during the summertime.
We are open from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day. The pool is open 7 days a week.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, and what are the hours?
9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays.
Great. Okay. Not great, but okay. And the idea that we got rid of the portable, when we got rid of the portable, the intention was to replace the portable, which we did not do. And the portable did provide an opportunity to generate revenue and bring in classes. So we...
Can I say something about
I know that portable had to go.
No,
Okay,
we
so
know.
I'm going to say that, Dave, you made the right call. I know we've got fixer-uppers in the audience that think they could, that portable was a health hazard.
It was
needed
done.
to go. But the idea was that it was going to go and it was going to be replaced with something else. That plan changed. So that was an opportunity for revenue that was impossible to replace because the portable was not replaced. There's potential there with the tennis courts. I don't think we need to redo the entire parking lot. So I think that there are things that we could do that the costs are not going to be what the costs are. In the restructuring, we did move some salaries, portions of salaries, over to that budget line item that wasn't there in the past. And so that's kind of something new. I do think that it provides a tremendous opportunity for not just our elderly population. I know we've heard primarily from our elders in the community, but also for our students, for kids. I've said it before, we're going to have to maintain the pool regardless of what we do. It does provide a tremendous impact on our seniors and our youth's mental health, physical therapy, on and on and on. I think that if we begin to look at some of those pieces, the hours, the advertising, the employee outreach and the opportunities that may be there, the fact that Fitness One closed, it was the only pool around. I think there's tremendous potential in that facility. I think COVID had a lot to do with just really killing that program. And since then, we just haven't had an opportunity to really dedicate, I think, the resources to building it back up to where it could be and what it could be. I did have a question, and I'm curious, because of the new language in the half penny, could any of the half penny dollars be utilized to support a portable? And I'm not talking about classes just for our seniors. I'm talking about opportunities even for like a Boys and Girls Club or an after-school program in that area, because we have a waiting list at like Wadsworth and other places. that there may be potential there. But can half-penny dollars be utilized to support a facility like a portable?
I think that the way that we left the language in the half penny, it was broad enough to potentially cover construction, but
I think if you linked it to your Classroom to Careers
Yeah.
initiative, you could be very creative.
Right. And there just may be opportunities to revisit the P7, I don't know, what do we call that plan?
P73
plan.
P73.
To revisit the P73 plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty neat plan that utilized that area, that, you know, the grounds and whatnot. It addressed the needs for some of our special needs population. I guess, as I've shared, my position on this hasn't really changed. I think there's some tremendous potential there. I know we all feel one way or the other. I view it as an educational facility for not just, to me it's a win-win. It's an educational facility, a physical facility for our seniors, but also for our students, for our kids. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity even for, you know, increasing swim lessons and, you know, rotating our kids through that facility during the day for swim lessons and whatever else it might be. So I would just hate to see us throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess, and I'll leave it at that because I'm sure I sound like a broken record.
Well, I am confused though, because the way you're talking, it almost sounds like we're debating and voting on whether we just shut it down.
No,
and to me, it's like if it stays open for students, to me, there's students of all ages. There's students who are 90. There are, you know, people brought up, you know, adult swim lessons, and so I mean, I didn't think there was any discussion of us shutting it down. It was just, do we continue it as a membership facility? Do we stop it as a membership facility and then work to find just a workable model to provide the most benefit?
I don't know why I guess what I'm thinking when I hear that. I thought the debate was we keep it student-centered or we keep it a blend of student-centered and community. And when I hear what you're saying, I get that, right? You could have classes that attract adults, but that's still community.
Yeah.
But I don't know why then you would move away from any sort of a membership opportunity when that could be additional revenue.
The way I guess that I think of it in my mind, sorry, we'll just
Yeah,
run out
you
and then I'll
finish.
stop. My dad's a retired Lutheran pastor, and he very often used the school facilities for lock-ins. He had great relationships with, I think we had the superintendent at my house for a party one night. He had great relationships. And someone from the community in one of their emails said, like it's state law actually that the schools are supposed to be good community partners and opening their facilities when possible to the community. And I'm all about that, so long as custodial is being paid and whatnot. Do we have an opportunity for churches to better use our gymnasium? Like, I think our community could use a lot. So, I mean, as far as the facility goes, I would never think that we would not, just like we would a Rimfire gymnasium or whatever, have any of our facilities open to the community. So to me, that's like, not even on the table that we wouldn't.
Don't.
If someone wants to rent out the gym, they can do that today, correct?
Yeah.
Rent it out. That is, so what you're
Like a
saying is
nominal
instead
fee
of
for
a
custodial.
membership, you're saying that every time somebody would come from the community to use the gym or use the pool as an individual, that they would rent out the pool?
That's already in place today.
No, that's
Oh, I'm so
a
sorry.
membership.
I'm sorry. I was just saying the structure is there today as far as any amenities or facilities with the schools. People can, and again, rent it out. It's like, I think it's just a nominal, like covering basic
It's actually
expenses.
not cheap.
Like if someone wants to rent out the gym for.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, if I'm an individual person and I want to rent out the whole gym, that's not cheap.
And we're going to bring this to the board next
Yeah.
month, our use of facilities manual and the rates that we are charging, and to show you what we are charging and then what we what it cost and what we're giving away to other groups that the board has directed,
Right.
said for us to do that. But the cost is, I mean, it's not as much to cover the cost of the power and electricity. I mean, we're not at that level yet, but it's a pretty good deal for most organizations.
To be able to use our
For
facilities.
organizations, so
Right.
how would?
An individual.
So if I'm renting the pool, I don't follow my train of thought, I guess.
They would have to put together a group where they come up with something and rent it out monthly or whatever.
Like Sinkerbells, that's a group, so that was the alternative in this scenario here, where we just stopped operating as a club, is that the anchor is the cost of running a club, having the staff and all the extra cost that comes with operating that as an open at any time type of business. All the ideas that you brought up, Dr. Congdon, I think were all great ones, and I think as a student-focused facility, we could still cycle all that in and benefit our students' adult education. Those could still exist. Because no one's, I mean, it's always an option that we could potentially just close it down. At least from my view, I felt that we need to have a place for our kids to have a pool to do their aquatic sports. But when we talk about this huge loss that we're having of $175,000 a year, is due to the cost of an operational business, right? When we take the business out of it, from the top end, we're at $85,000 if we eliminate the gym component and just operate it as an aquatic facility, and we can lease out that building, and we could expand educational services there. But what I can see historically here, what has been the big cause of the loss is what it takes to have a front desk person to check IDs, to have staff there. If a group comes together like a Sinkerbells and says, hey, we're gonna meet, we're gonna come here 3 times a week, we're a group, let's all pool our dollars together and we're gonna rent this facility 3 times a week for 3 hours. Everybody pay in to the group, just like a Flagler Fluids too. There, I'm sure there's some membership or cost to be part of that group, and then they buy the time and it's all factored in. Essentially, that's an option that the current people that are using it as a membership could put out there, but it takes the burden off of the school to administer this and have all the necessary things. And for example, like the and if we keep this going, I would love to think that we could turn this into a very profitable business. But I just don't see, in the state that it is, and the amount of money that it's going to take to invest in there to make it an attractive product compared to what's out there in the private sector right now for gym, for facility, it's just not there. And there are other public options for a pool. It's not this one, but there is a pool available that's free to Zamba.
But there are no other pools and gyms.
Well, there are gyms. You don't need to have a gym right next to the pool. You can go to Planet Fitness for $10 a month and have a gym. The fact that we need to provide this, continue to carry this huge loss, to provide something that the community already, it's available to the community.
I guess what I'm saying to you, I think if you look at all of the variables we just talked about, we are creating the loss. We are creating the loss because we haven't invested in advertising. We've been threatening to close it for the last since COVID. Who's gonna buy a membership when there's constant conversations about threatening to close it? There was a point in time, actually, when there was a front desk person and more staff than that over there. And that program, the whole program, was running in the black. It wasn't running in the red. We haven't invested in it to see a return at all.
But when you market something and you bring the people there, it has to be an attractive product. And we have outdated facilities there. The showers are.
But we're gonna have to update them anyway. We can't have our kids in facilities that are not updated. So regardless, we're gonna have to use our capital dollars to upgrade those facilities if we're going to keep students.
Not necessarily, because
Sure.
we don't need to provide. We don't need to use the showers. We don't have to, we
How
don't
do
have
you
to bring
have,
those,
how do you have swim teams practicing and you don't use the showers?
we don't have to bring them to the standards in the sense that if you are
I
a
would
for-profit
disagree.
business, you have to bring these things up to a level of
Right.
standards to make it, if you're gonna get somebody to
I would
exchange their knowledge.
disagree. You
Okay.
can't have one standard for adults and one standard for children.
Well, this is why we're gonna vote, and then we'll
Yeah,
just
I
decide
think
which
that's where we're
direction we'll
gonna
go
take it
in.
next, is just to take it to a vote, yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I firmly believe that we need to move operations of Belterra Swim Rec back to FTC. That was a huge error and has created much of this issue overall. Because when it was, this is a,
Who decided
Flagler
that?
well, our previous school board.
Decided
No,
back when
yeah.
Superintendent Valentine, she wanted to do a deeper dive into all of the different
That's
various
it.
departments that were covered under Flagler Technical College, which was previously
FTI.
Adult and Community Education.
Right.
And the decisions, and Assistant Superintendent Oliva was tasked with finding out what programs were, which were not student-based, if they were adult community education-based, they needed to be standing on their own and not being subsidized by the youth camp or by the summer camps or by the extended day program. Because what was happening when all of those things were under one bucket is if somebody was losing money, it was, you took from a program that was making money, like extended day, and it paid the deficit.
So Chair Massaro, is there, Dave originally asked, what additional information do we need? As far as finding out this FTC model, I know I would be
FTC is
interested in-
currently remodeled. Remember, they're reorganizing.
Yeah.
FTC is currently reorganizing. All of our other adult and community ed programs fall under FTC. It would make sense that's where the pool should remain. It should not be a standalone situation. It just doesn't make sense. It's all by itself. It got pulled out basically for financial issues, and we still can't seem to get all that wrapped
Well,
up.
if I may, just add a little more context to the narrative. So every year, as a district, you have to evolve to changing conditions. And so when we pushed through the pandemic and we recognized that there were changes in terms of accessing resources, one of the things we wanted to always remain steadfast on was we have to remember our mission. Our mission was all about students. And we knew that the FTC umbrella was big, and over here was our extended day program. Extended day supports, should support, let me just rephrase that, the extended day dollars coming in should be pushed back to your schools. They were helping cover some of the shortage that Belterra Swim and Racquet Club was created in terms of deficits. I understand, Dr. Conklin.
Any program, right.
Correct. So what we did 2 years ago is we tasked our CFO to please start creating separate line items so we now could better manage the dollars coming in and the revenue sources, so we could trace that. So Patty pulled that apart, and for over a year we brought forward, here's extended day, here's how we've moved some of the programs out. So we cleaned up our financial buckets, Patty, if you want to jump in any time and help me out here. But one of the visions we had was trying to, now we've moved 6th grade back into middle school. We have K-5 elementary schools. You're looking at extended day opportunities at each of your elementary school programs and having those programs be funded, which directly impacts the school sites. So we were trying to subrogate those dollars, and that was part of the exercise we were doing.
We actually created separate projects for all of the programs under FTC back when Superintendent Oliva was here, which is what Ms. Gavin was just stating. That's when we started to try to dig into this and see where the losses were coming from. What we started to do a few years ago that Superintendent Middlestat was speaking of is digging down into, okay, we've lost membership from COVID. Where else are we losing money? How is this getting covered financially? So that was the big dig into it a couple years ago, which is why this suddenly came back up. But we have been looking at this starting back when we had Superintendent Jacob Oliva here back in 2012, I believe, after Valentine left.
Yeah.
That's when all this started.
Mr. Freeman, are there showers at the Frida Zamba pool? You aware of?
I'm sure they have to have showers. For a pool, you have to have showers.
Yeah, you have to.
And I believe there are indoor and outside showers in it. Just like at Belterre, we have indoor and outdoor showers.
So going back to what I was saying, I still think it should be under, I would see it ran much better under FTC. It doesn't need to be standalone or matched up with the youth center or the Carver Center. They are with, it's just, they're different. That's number one. Number two, we get income from our memberships. It's a substantial amount of income. And could it be increased? Maybe. I think it probably could if we followed the certain paths of advertising and doing things. And I hate to nix anything that we're making income at, since we still have to maintain that till 2030. Correct? We still have to maintain the facility 2030. So we take out that income. I'm not sure facility rentals is going to make up enough money to cover the difference. And that's something that we need to think about. How much is there really going to be of facility rentals?
But if we
have income.
But if we reduce immediately, if we end the membership club, we go from 175,000. We go from 175,000 to 85. So I mean, it's an immediate savings, almost $90,000.
Maybe not. It could even
what's
be
the
more.
savings? Because all you're doing is you're shifting the salary now, a portion of the salary that's coming out of that, back out into another cost center. You still have to have custodial to clean the facility.
Yeah, you still have to have
But
chlorine.
we already had a number. They gave us the numbers. They said if we want to run this as a student-focused facility, it would be $85,000 without the gym. And I assume it factored in all these costs, didn't it? All these operational costs. So I mean,
the custodial cost, is your salary still coming out of that facility?
When we previously presented those items, personnel costs were not in that projection.
Right, so it's just an additional 30,000.
So where does that?
But they weren't in the high number either. So
sure they were.
So you're saying at the 175,000 that the operational costs were factored in, but at 85,000 it was not? I'm looking at the two proposals.
Salary.
Yeah, but I mean, were we looking at apples for apples numbers? If we're doing comparison,
we didn't have it clear.
It was, so I just want to know, do I have the right numbers here, right? I mean, that's the clarity. When we were told that we were losing $175,000 a year as a membership facility.
Since COVID.
Right, well, regardless of the time, this is what we
No,
got.
it can't be, it can't be regardless of the time. The time had a very big impact.
Let me get my point out, please. So I just want to know that I'm making decisions based on correct numbers here and apples for apples.
Well, I'm not sure that's sure.
Well, I'm not asking you, Chair. I'm asking.
Not asking Chair. I'm talking as myself here.
Yeah, I'm asking the numbers that you provided the board. Right, we were given two options. You said, here's what it's going to cost if we run it as a membership facility, and if we run it as a student-focused facility, it's here, right? So in order to make a decision in that number, they should be apples for apples in all the costs associated, because that's what I'm basing my decision on here, is that if we took away the gym component and the membership, I was told by, and all the data here said we would be at $85,000 a year. If we keep it as a membership, we're gonna lose $175,000. So were those apples for apples comparisons at the end of the day, factoring all the costs in there?
So we presented on February 22nd, and we provided a breakdown of what it could potentially look like if we just maintained the pool for our youth facility partners and our high school swim teams. We listed the various costs, and next to personnel, we put $0. Now, of course, this was the start of a conversation, not fully aware of what that exactly would look like, because we're just looking for direction. It's what we've been looking for. Now, as the conversation has evolved, if we're looking at a center and the board's given feedback on, yes, we would like someone, either there on site, then yes, that would have to be factored into it. What kind of personnel involvement would the board like to have regarding that specific site? And we could make adjustments to that.
This doesn't answer my question. I'm here trying to make a decision based on information that y'all provided, right? And I have two numbers here, right? So the first number was we're losing $175,000, right? If we ran it as a student focus, it would be $85,000 loss, right? But now I'm hearing that not all costs are factored in. So are those two, are we really saving $90,000 basically is what I'm saying if we move it to a student-focused facility? This is all about fiscal responsibility and making the right decision. I don't see it realistically that we're gonna cover a $90,000 gap by trying to revamp this place as a membership facility. But if that gap is much smaller, I need to know what those real numbers are. And I'm basing it off everything that I've been given since we've started this conversation. So do I have reliable numbers on me before I make decisions that are gonna affect a whole lot of people here?
Yes, you have reliable numbers from what we presented at each one of those meetings. As Joshua said, I mean, each one we got different guidance. We got guidance from each of those meetings. So the salaries that Joshua says is 0 in the 87, you know, his salary would just be redirected somewhere else with additional duties or responsibilities for something else. So
well, I'm not. I mean, however we're accounting his salary in there, but I'm just saying this should be a simple mathematical equation here.
I understand.
If I keep it open, we're going to lose 175. If we close the membership club, we're at 8. We're going to lose 85,000. Now I'm hearing that those numbers may be skewed, and that's where my concern is, because those are what I'm basing my decision off of. You know, because I look at that and I say immediately, if we do this, we save $90,000 a year, and then we have the potential to bring down that 85,000 through rentals fees, sharpening our pencil on it, maybe not heating the pool, whatever it might be, right? But if it's not a $90,000 gap that we're solving here by ending the membership, I need to know what that number is, because that's the number that's keeping me from saying this is not viable as a business. Just the acquisition cost of new membership, when you go out to seek new membership, cost per new member, you have to invest a lot of advertising just to get members. You don't, just because you put an ad in the paper doesn't mean you're going to get response. So what I want to know, am I looking at the right numbers here? The comparison I gave you, am I coming to the conclusion that if we close the membership, that we will save $90,000 annually or not?
Josh, when you had the personnel for that, and I can't remember, but I thought the thought process was we wouldn't need staff out there if it was closed for a student use, correct?
Correct. It would essentially be where if someone wanted to rent out the facility, they would contact use facility. If they needed a key, they could go pick it up. They would be able to go on site, do what they need to do, and leave. Okay. The facilitation, and we haven't had a chance to really go into what that potential option could look like, but things we would consider would be the scheduling of the facility would go through Facilitron and use facilities. They would be able to rent out the key or coordinate that effort.
But that doesn't, but by doing that, which is what was presented, we wouldn't need staff on site all day long.
But we don't. Go ahead, sorry.
The one thing I do agree that we would need is, I don't know if it's factored in, is the cleaning, the custodial portion. But we wouldn't have staff
not
allocated.
as frequently as
Right.
we would currently have it.
We
Yes,
don't know
custodial.
But custodial, wasn't there some custodial factored into the top end number as well?
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that then in fact we do have an apples for apples comparison.
No, because we don't have his salary in there.
The salary before was not factored in there. It's now
In the
factored in
the
there.
175?
It's the
He wishes.
175, it's factored in there.
Okay, but in
The other
85,
85, it's not factored in.
But there wouldn't be any
But then
full-time
would he be
salaries
reassigned
in
to
there.
something else where his
Yes, but
resources would be-
he's not working at Carver, he's not located at the teen youth center, but a portion of his salary is still charged
Well,
there.
how much is it charged to Belter?
34%. 66% of my salary and benefits is charged to Carver/Youth Center, and 34% is the Belter Spoon Racket Club. When I initially took this position, it was 100% FBA in the youth center. I reached out to my
So that's
supervisor
new.
and asked for that to be split so that it could be fair.
So
That was
an
not
additional
part
cost.
in the history of.
Right.
So if this became a student use, we wouldn't need Joshua's 34% there. He would management
somewhere
would
else.
determine what additional duties he would
So it
take
wasn't,
on.
it wasn't put in there
Well,
because
that's
It doesn't make it go away.
Well, but we're not, but he's still a resource to our district. It's just gonna be reallocated to another effort. We're not trying to eliminate his pay. He's an asset to the school.
I'm
We
not-
can use him in other areas.
I'm not saying you're not an asset.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think throwing
Still
his
gonna be
salary in here
expense.
really.
It's an expense is my point. It's an expense. And the bottom line was, it was never part of the equation prior to. It now is. That's new. That wasn't the case in the past.
Well, I think now that just clouds the numbers, because I don't see it that way. If he's gonna be no longer needing to be involved in that facility.
But he is.
he's
I mean,
gonna-
you're not gonna have any oversight in that facility?
No, I mean, if it was a student-run focused, it would be run by Facilitron. Plant Services would do the maintenance of that facility. Joshua might have help in getting Facilitron or getting our use of facility person to get lifeguards. You know, here's a list of lifeguards. You know, give those to our use of facility person. and-
That makes me a little nervous.
It
It's
does.
a pool.
And who's,
Okay.
like, principals are in charge of their facilities. Principals have final say whether people can rent them or not, even through Facilitron, correct? Who's
They
gonna be who's gonna be in charge of Belterre Swim and Racket Pool? Who's gonna make the calls?
It would be our use of facilities and plant services that would look at, you know,
But there's an
what the
oversight.
schedule.
Principals do all their buildings, do all their gyms, their
Right,
track.
and that's what our
everything else.
director, or plant services director.
So they would be in charge then.
They would look at the oversight of the maintenance and to make sure that, you know, when we have scheduled maintenance, we're not renting the facility out. When we rent the facility out to Fluids, we make sure that they have the lifeguards to do that. I mean, there is nobody there from Belterre Swim and Racket making sure that, yep, they got the lifeguards. They, or an organization that
Right.
has
Right,
agreed to
and
have
they do
it.
the same thing for the Synchro Bells and all too?
Same thing with
They
the
bring their own
Synchro Bells.
lifeguards.
Either they bring their own lifeguards or we provide a lifeguard for them.
Yeah, typically Synchro Bells works during our normal operating hours, if not a little
So
bit
you have a
after, and they
lifeguard-
overlap with
You have a
Fluids.
lifeguard on duty at that point.
I guess what I'm trying to say, Will, is prior, like, I'm looking at the financials, right? Prior to COVID, in membership fees, we had $174,000 in membership fees. After COVID, so 2021, we had $122,000 in membership fees. So the membership fees took a huge hit after
50,000.
COVID.
Well,
And they're
the other
on
thing-
the uptick, but they're not quite back where they were.
The other big problem that that exists is that 90% of our memberships are coming from insurance that are paying us pennies. I mean, the model is just a total mess. Honestly, I think that the insurance part of it is what cannibalized this whole operation from a membership of sustainability, because we have only about 100 paying members, and 90% are insurance that are paying us in some cases per use, right, not per person, $4 or $5 to in a month to use the pool in some cases. And we'll just, how are you gonna get those people converted to paying $40 a month when they're really essentially, it's free to them because they're just paying their health insurance and they're getting it for free. It's just, there's our captive audience of people that were really engaged with this facility, but how do we get them off that? And if we cut that off, immediately you shut down a stream of revenue that's just life support, and not even that really. And my point is, if I could see a light at the end of the tunnel, I would say, let's do it. But the gap is too narrow. I don't feel we have a marketable product. And if you just look at any marketing, any business, when you look at it, they say, what is your per acquisition cost per user or customer? Pick it there. And then if you think about it, however many members we need to do, it could be, we may have to spend, $100 to acquire, one paying customer, maybe. And sometimes how many do we
How
need?
is social media
Do we need
today?
1,000?
Nobody does print ads anymore.
Well, no, but there's still an acquisition cost per user. It's reality in business. You have to, before you advertise, you got to say, what does it cost to acquire a new customer before you just throw advertising dollars out there? And I just don't think we have a real marketable product. So again, I guess circling back, we've kind of aired this out again, and I feel now confident again with the numbers. Thanks for going through that with me, because I was a little frustrated because I felt like we didn't have an apples for apples comparison, but I think we do, as a matter of fact. So I think unless anybody, I'm done adding to this. If anybody else has anything to add, we just bring this to the next meeting and vote on what the board's pleasure is on the go forward.
Well, what's the deal with the insurance companies? If we go to Facilitron, what's the deal with those contracts? What do their contracts look like?
So each contract, the 4 agreements that we're in vary from, if we're talking about notifying them without cause, range from 30 days notice up to 120 days notice. And all those contracts have an automatic renewal date of about this, either December 31st or January 1st. Now going through those agreements, there are where we would be, essentially if we closed before then, we would essentially be, I don't know if liable is the right word, I haven't met with Christy on this, but we would be ceasing to provide the services we agreed to, so that company could then cease the agreement with us because we've breached our agreement.
So the expectation, if I'm understanding the board correctly, the expectation is that people who are now having their membership or their visits covered by insurance would have to pay out of pocket to rent the facility?
Well, they would be over because there'd be no more membership. I mean, that would
So
go.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They would not be able to use their health insurance to participate in the club. They would then, out of pocket, expect to have to pay to rent the facility to use the pool.
Well, no, because we're no longer a membership facility. It would be a use fee. It would be
a rent it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
But that's not what. It's rare that people rent our facilities for one person. They rent them for groups. So if in that scenario, if those members wanted to continue some sort of membership type style access, they would have to form their group. Again, would shift all the cost of running a club. They could have their own club like Synchrobells and Flagler Fluids, and they could still have access to the pool. This is not a one-off facility. The move would be to a student-focused facility with public access, just like the rest of our facilities that anybody can rent. That's what it would go to. There would be no memberships, paid or health club, the like.
And it's only the pool. We're going to close the sauna and the gym, correct?
Yeah, the gym.
And of course the courts and all, they would be non-usable.
Yes.
So
Right,
it's
it would be a
it's not. It's a
student-
completely change of the access and the use of the facility.
Yeah.
Would be a
If we
Just
were
a
to
pool,
vote to do
standalone
that.
Our options are student run, student only, or continue operations as a membership. So if it's student only, then you would have to use Facilitron to either rent the tennis court, just like anybody can rent out facilities around the
Would you be
district.
able to do that then? On Facilitron, it would include both the tennis court and the gym?
We do it right now for the tennis court. They
Yeah.
could,
What
they
about
can
the
rent
gym?
that.
The gym is online.
Would that be
as a
able to do
wellness
that
center.
too, so we wouldn't close the gym in that case? So we could come up with some kind of individual rental program?
We could if the board wanted us to keep the gym open, or we wanted to use that building for a different purpose.
Do we have staff in the gym?
Yes. Yeah,
So
for
that's a
every hour of
staffing issue.
operation, we have a gym attendant.
So that's a nice staffing issue.
Before the next meeting, can you send the actual breakdown of the budget for the $315,000?
Sure.
Because it's not in any of the financials that we have, the
No
$315,000.
And I'm not sure which presentation that was in. Do you remember?
April 4th, it was in that presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get it sent over.
All right, is everybody else, are we okay with questions? Anybody want to add anything?
I mean, I'll
Christine?
just note, like Fitness One, I believe they also took those insurance programs, right? Like,
yeah, they did.
They're out of business. Like, I mean, that kind of
Right.
says something.
Yeah, but
And
We're not a business. I mean, I think that is
That's
part of
problem.
the issue. We are a public institution that is providing a public resource and service. This was a gift to this district for that purpose. So I think this idea of it just being a business is a dangerous one to fall into. I'm not saying you specifically.
I'm just talking about
Kristen.
fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I will add, just my perspective, I see a lot of work that needs to be done in Flagler schools. I know there's reasons for it, but we have a whole lot of kids who are at risk of not graduating. We have a whole lot of kids who can't read at grade level. So as one of 5 board members, I want to start to be really laser focused on the job at hand. And Will, I think, a little bit spoke to opportunity cost. You know, if we're focusing over here, everybody has only so many minutes in the day. Everybody only has so much capacity. So if we're focusing here, we can't be focusing here. And so I still have a lot of, Patty, I'll probably be reaching out to you with some additional questions because I want to have all my facts right. But that is where I am right now, is my commitment to education in Flagler County. And that just so everybody knows where my mind is at. Okay, are we done? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, we're going on to 17.04, student conduct, code of conduct, Mr. Finelli.
Good afternoon, Chair Massaro, Board, Superintendent Middlestat.
No.
I'll try and keep this to under an hour for you. So I come before you today with some updates and revisions for our student code of conduct. It is that time of year where we start focusing on next year, right? So it's time for us to review and revise our student code of conduct to better meet the needs of all of our faculty, staff, and students in the district. So I've provided you with 2 copies, an elementary code copy and a secondary copy. We are required to have 2 separate codes, one for our elementary schools and then one for our middle and high schools.
Excuse me, guys, you gotta keep it down. Go ahead.
So I have a presentation here that I'd just like to go through with you guys quickly. It starts out with an approval timeline. So I'm here before you today at the agenda workshop to review and ask for you to approve the advertising for the student codes of conduct at our May 16th meeting. The reason why we have to do it at the May 16th meeting is we have to advertise for 30 days. We don't have 30 days between May and June, so we will actually advertise our code for 2 months, which gives ample opportunity for everybody that would like to provide feedback regarding our student codes of conduct to do so. You can see the approval timeline here, and I'll keep it moving as we go through our meetings. So today is the agenda workshop where I present it. I'll be asking for approval at the school board meeting on the 16th. At the information workshop on June 20th, I will come back to you with more updates and revisions based off of community feedback, based off of more input and feedback from our schools, from our parents. And then I will provide you with those updates that occur between now and then. I will then come back to you at the agenda workshop on July 11th, where you will have an opportunity to basically see what we are proposing as the revised student codes of conduct for the 23-24 school year. You'll have opportunity for input, ask any questions, and then we'll be looking at a final approval on July 25th. It will immediately then go out to print, and we will have them in the hands of our schools for the first day of school on August 10th. Okay, so where are we getting this input, and where are we seeking this feedback on the student code? We do everything we can to engage all stakeholders in our community, whether that be our parents, our students, our faculty and staff, our administrators, everybody. We want everybody to have a voice in what they would like to see our student code look like. So some of the ways in which we advertise on our district website, we advertise on our school websites, We're asking for permission to advertise through the Flagler Palm Coast News Tribune. We actually take out an article in the News Tribune to do that. We advertise through our district Facebook page, which I'm sure some of you may have already seen those going out. Hey, please provide us input. We're going to send a direct email to parents, faculty, and staff with a link to directly provide feedback to student code of conduct. So we're actually going to email everybody in the district so that they have an opportunity to. And then I have personally sent Google Share documents asking for feedback from our district staff to include our administrators, our principals, assistant principals, deans, behavior interventionists, our attendance clerks, and transportation. So I've already reached out to them. I've met with several members of transportation. I've met with our attendance clerks. I've spoken with our administrators, our deans. We meet monthly and throughout the year talk about changes that need to be made. I'll be meeting with our deans again next week to again bring back the document that I'm sharing with you today for additional input and revisions. So just to quickly go through some of the current revisions that have been recommended. We have looked to make some updates to our multidisciplinary team. This multidisciplinary team is the team that decides on appropriate disciplinary consequences, interventions, and supports for students who have a high-level discipline offense occur on campus. So the schools can put them up to our multidisciplinary team, and then that team is the team that decides if they need an alternative placement for their education, if they need additional interventions or supports that maybe haven't been recommended to them at the school level. So some of the things that we wanted to do, we wanted to update. So our representative for substance use and mental health also now includes social work. So we wanted to add that to the title. Our secondary representatives, we wanted to include one per school, and that was a recommendation from the deans. And it is important that one per school is there because most of the time there are students from the different schools there coming before us. So it is important that we have a representative of each of those secondary schools. A recommendation was made to add a member of the teaching and learning department to that team. A lot of times what comes before us is students who are not only struggling behaviorally, but they have a lot of academic deficiencies. So it's important that we have somebody from teaching and learning there that can speak directly to credit recovery, speak to different modalities of learning and how we can best meet the needs of those students. So that recommendation was there. Also now we need an alternative program representative at the table, and we have had that, but it's something that we haven't necessarily had in our code of conduct. So an administrator from Rise Up, our alternative program, is part of that team. We now have a district safety specialist. We would like that person. Of course, safety is always of utmost importance to us as a district, so we need to make sure that part of that consideration is whether or not that student is safe to go back to school or safe to go to an alternative school. So we've added that position to the multidisciplinary team, and then a representative for transportation, because we know that some of these behaviors are not only occurring on our school campuses, but they're occurring on our transportation as well, and we need a transportation supervisor, somebody to be there to direct us and guide us in what the options may be for transporting a student or not transporting a student because they're not safe to for us to provide transportation to them. So those are some of the additions we'd like to make to the multidisciplinary team language, and also students who, and we've had several that remain in an alternative setting for 45 days or longer. We'd like to put in there that we are reviewing those students every 45 days to see where they're at with getting those interventions and supports and what the long-term plan is for that student moving forward with their education. Next, we had some additions and revisions, and then some removals of different codes. The first is we'd like to add a level 2 offense code for defiance insubordination minor. So right now we just have one code for defiance insubordination. But defiance insubordination could mean a student who refuses to take their hat off in the hallway. It could also mean a student who is doing something that is a significant safety concern on campus and they're being redirected to stop. We need to capture those two in different lanes. So if it's a student who is refusing to put their cell phone away or take their hat off, the consequences for that need to be different than a student who's creating a major safety concern on campus. So by doing things like splitting those codes, it allows us to more appropriately provide consequences based on what the behavior was. So we're looking to add a defiance insubordination minor and a defiance insubordination major to split those up. So you see also in level 3, we added the term major to defiance insubordination, and we added the language, anything that would create a safety concern on campus would be a defiance insubordination major. We also want to clarify for our schools and make sure that every time that they code a referral, the referral is coded to the most appropriate code that fits the offense. We have to make sure we do that specifically because of SESR offenses, those school environmental safety incident reporting that we're required to report to the state. So what we've done is to just clarify for the schools, we've put language in at the end of our level 3 codes that says you must review the SESR code first to make sure it does not meet the definition of a required reported code to the state before you code it as a lesser referral. Because we want to make sure that there's no ambiguity, there's no gray. If it meets the definition of assessor, it is required by law to be reported as assessor. And we want to make sure that our deans and our administrators are reviewing those assessors prior to coding anything as a local code. So we want to make sure there's no gray there, there's no ambiguity. So we're adding language at the end of those local codes that says review the assessor code first.
John, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So on your, I think the slide prior to this one, where you're looking at level 3, just as an example, I mean, you're talking about a planned fight, and you say it's a non-cessor, it's premeditated, but there's no significant injury, and they stop on verbal command.
Yes.
Are you saying that is not getting entered as a fight, or it does get entered as a fight?
So that gets entered as a fight as a local code. That would not be a code that would be required to report to the state. And the reason why is, and you said it when you read the definition, they stopped on command, which then we don't have to report, and there were no serious injuries.
Okay, so now what if it's the opposite? Is it a level 4? So it's a premeditated fight, there is serious injury, and they refuse to stop on verbal command. Is that a level?
That would be a level 4 assessor fight that would be required
and that
to
would be
report
reported to the state.
Yes.
So when people talk about fights that are happening on campus, but they're not seeing those numbers reflected in the assessor report at the state level, you're saying that's because there wasn't a significant industry and they stopped upon verbal command.
And it has to be both of those. So if one of those occurred, it has to be reported as assessor. So if there was serious injury, or it required us physically having to restrain or separate them, then we are required to report that to the state. But if neither of those occur, then by definition, we can report it as a local code.
Okay, and the fighting mutual, are you saying that's a local code as well?
Yes.
When they get into a conflict and there is a fight, but there's no injury, and again, so the only difference there is one's premeditated, one's not.
Yes, and we added that planned fighting code last year because unfortunately we found that a lot of our fights on campus were fights where students had the opportunity to seek help and chose not to.
Right. Okay.
So they were pre-planned, premeditated, meet me tomorrow in this location to fight, which shows that there was an opportunity to seek help from faculty and staff on campus, from a parent at home, and they didn't. So the reason why we added the planned fighting code is it comes with harsher consequences because there was opportunity to avoid the fight, and they specifically chose to plan it and fight. So, sure. All right, moving along. The next ones that we want to look at were, we had 2 codes that were assault on employee. Assault is actually basically a threat. Unfortunately, it was being misinterpreted a lot of times as assault being physical contact or physical in nature. So in order to, again, make those codes clear and make them mean what they say and say what they mean, we took out the assault and we made it threat on employee and threat on student.
So this is a verbal or written. What about the physical assault?
Can we let him get through this?
Oh, sorry.
We gotta let him get through this, please.
So if it was physical in nature, there are other codes. We have a hit strike, which is a local code, and then we have a Cessor simple battery, or Cessor aggravated battery, which would be physical assault. So we just put in the threat to clarify those codes. Vandalism, again, was another one, and violation of a restriction notice. We put in there just reminders to review those Cessor codes to make sure that we are coding everything appropriately and reporting to the state what is required to be reported. We are recommending that we remove 4 offense codes from our student code of conduct. One is threat to harm, non-criminal, because we have those 2 other codes. That's threat to student and threat to staff. So we don't need another code that does the same thing. So we just want to strike that one through. The other 3 codes are codes that should never be coded as a local code. If it's an explosive, we need to report that to the state. If it's hazing, we need to report that to the state. If it's trespassing. So we're going to strike through, get those out of there. They weren't codes that were being used. They were really old codes that just need to be cleaned up and taken out. So on April 19, 2023, the State Board of Education approved an emergency rule which requires districts to report certain offenses on campus to law enforcement. We had that already in our matrices. We were already doing that, but now there's an emergency state law that says you have to report these offenses when there's certain offenses that occur on campus. So you'll see in the next slide up, 1 more, 2 more, 1 more. There we go. So these codes, and the language in green is in green because it's based off of state law change. Cessor offenses designated with an asterisk are required to be reported to law enforcement as defined in that emergency rule. So if any one of those occurs on our campus, we are required now through the state emergency rule to report it to law enforcement when it happens. So, so we've designated all of those with an asterisk so that the schools know that if one of those occurs on campus, they are required to report it to law enforcement. We will also make it even more visible in our matrices that these offense codes require reporting to law enforcement. There are also related codes that and what a related code is, there may be an initial offense, but it's related to something else. So a student committed an offense on campus, and they were under the influence of alcohol. Alcohol would be a related code to that first offense. So these related codes are also required to be reported to law enforcement when they occur, based off of that state emergency rule. Moving on. Transportation specifically had asked that we put in an additional rule for them that states do not allow audio or video recording or to take photos while on the school bus. So that's something that wasn't in there that they've requested that we add to it. And then on the last slide for attendance, we just wanted to again clarify our language. It did say 5 parent notes per term. We now go by semesters, not terms, so it would be 5 parent notes per semester, which would occur prior to 15 days, so that language didn't need to be there. And then students sent home from school by the school nurse may not participate in interscholastic or extracurricular events or activities that occur that day. So if the nurse sends you home from school, you can't come back for football practice or, or band or whatever you may be participating in after school. So those are currently the recommendations and revisions that are before you. Again, this process will continue for the next 2 months. So there is more that I have to work through. We've gotten I've received some feedback from the community on cell phones, on dress code, so I'll be working those in and bringing that before our deans, and then it'll come back to you at the information workshop in June.
Okay. All right.
When we workshop this in the future, could it please be one of the first things on the agenda and not last? I mean, this is like really important, and it's 6 o'clock and we've been sitting here for a long time, so it's just hard to focus. Like, I'd like this to be one of the first things that we talk about.
I'm good with that, because then I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
I mean, no doubt. Student safety will not. Well, one thing that we're doing right now, though, but we're just gonna be approving to advertise, right?
That's
Yes,
all.
yes,
That's
we're
it.
just
That's
approving. We
it.
do have more
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
to talk about this, but,
You do.
at first I was a little confused about that also, but yeah, we're just advertising, so we'll have time to read through this and provide comment. And
I don't wanna
and
fight about a
input.
pool for an hour and then like talk about safety, like.
I'm with you on that.
So we do have 2 months, and I will be coming before you multiple times over those 2 months to continue to gather feedback and discuss what our student code needs to look like for next year.
Gotcha. And when's like the deadline that we have to have all of our input, everything in, so that we can implement this?
So the goal would
Look at the
be,
first slide. Go back
the
to
goal
the
would be July 11th would be the goal. But truly, we can, you guys have the ability to, all the way up to July 25th, when you do final approval. But my hopes would be that by July 11th, I'm presenting you with a copy that everybody
Most
feels
likely
good
would be
about,
final, right.
you know?
And John, you said you advertise this on like Facebook?
Yes,
Or-
so
or
this has already gone out on Facebook. We're emailing all of our parents, faculty, and staff. The News Tribune will be advertising it. It's on the district web pages.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Any more questions? All right, so this is a process. It takes time. It's not something we do immediately. So we do have time to digest everything. All right, going on then. Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John.
Human Resources Pharmacy Program Edition, Mr. Roulette.
You do the bottom one, that's the PowerPoint. Thank you. Superintendent Mazzaro, board members, Middlestat. We're coming to you with our hope is an add-on that was brought to us at the last insurance committee meeting by Brown and Brown. Danielle was unable to join us today to kind of go through this, but the goal behind sharing this with you today is to put this in our benefits plan for open enrollment, and it's an opportunity to capture some cost savings for both our employees and the plan in general. It was something that at the time that we were reviewing the entire basket for open enrollment, Danielle and Brown did not have the final numbers on. So that's why it's a late addition, and we apologize for that. The executive summary on that, as you can see, what was brought forward to committee was the recommendation that 3 of the 4 programs here for pharmacy be put into our open enrollment benefits package. The cost savings, I'll start with at the bottom of that slide, are captured through different ways and are not directly affecting the outcomes of our employees, our staff. For example, the low value formula exclusions, a separate exclusionary list which protects plan from high dollar medications. Basically, in the first one, they're taking a look at this company, Prudent RX, with the help of pharmacy experts, the medications that are being prescribed and whether or not that medication that is prescribed at the high dollar rate is exactly what the patient would need, or is there a low cost or lower cost that's just as effective that they could discuss with the patient and decide to recommend or not. Okay, in the end, it's still just this is where the recommendation lies. High dollar claims and complex conditions. Once again, the high dollar claim uses the threshold of the complex condition intervention, where actually their staff would get with our high dollar folks and have the discussions with them as far as helping them navigate the conditions and what exactly their trajectories are for their pharmaceuticals. If you see the True and the Prudent RX on the far right, that one there is actually the largest single cost savings, and the reason for that is where we are now. We have a small number of folks that are using some of the new high dollar specialty pharmaceuticals, Ozempic, things like that, and we're not capturing all of the cost savings or rebates that are currently available. This would allow Prudent RX to go ahead and reach out to our folks, and we'll see in subsequent slides exactly how they do that, to help our folks make sure that we capture all the cost savings that the middlemen in the pharmacy industry actually help provide. The bottom line of the cost savings on those 3 plans are down in yellow at the bottom. You will see that one plan was not recommended by Brown & Brown, and at this time it's just kind of still under review. Next slide, please. And just as we talked about, currently 20 members are on specialty medications out of our 1,500 total enrollment. This is a 31% increase as far as in our spend related to specialty drugs. This will probably be a continuing trend. I don't see it going the other way. I mean, we all hear the news about some of the new drugs that are coming out, and these things will be discussions with our physicians. These will be opportunities to kind of capture cost savings, and we'll talk about exactly how they do that. Next slide. Okay. Many manufacturers offer copay assistance programs. I'm not going to read the whole slide, but it's kind of that piece you hear at the end of the commercials where if you can't afford this medication, reach out to the drug company and we have programs for you. Well, Prudent RX is especially adept to go ahead and help plug in our folks to those programs that are usually just the bottom trailer on those commercials to help us capture savings. So it's a behind the scenes piece. As far as the 30% copay insurance and medication drug, as far as the eligible full manufacturer's assistance, and it would be up to $15,000 a year per medication. So for those 20 members, it will save them also on their copays because we'll be capturing that as part of the rebate. And this is just a general, the difference in red if we weren't using the Prudent plan as opposed to trying to capture the rebates through the Prudent plan. We wouldn't capture in that example in red, there'd be 0 plan savings, but the example between 10 fills, 11 fills, and 12 fills shows you that overall the potential is there for $13,000 in savings. And this here is really kind of the important part as far as where it aligns with the cost savings, that this isn't any kind of intrusive thing that we're going to be doing with our membership. For those folks who already are in that group who are on those high dollar medications, Prudent RX will send a letter to them. Then 30 days before we actually go live in September, they'll follow up with a phone call and kind of walk them through the plan. Then they'll enroll the member in the Prudent RX plan. And so as they fill the medications, there'll be $0 impact on those members because what we'll do is as they capture the rebate, it goes not only on our end as a savings, but on the member end of what they were originally paying as that copay. Those are for the existing folks. For those folks who during the course of our, come on back down. During the course of the year, they are prescribed one of these medications by a doctor. It's the same procedure at that point. Once they go and have a prescription filled through our CVS specialty, which is our pharmacy benefit package, that name is referred over to Prudent RX, and then Prudent RX does the same process as far as reaching out to the member and working with them to go ahead and get them signed up and has to have the cost savings transferred. This is, okay, go ahead. Now, the additional attachments that were in board docs are basically one flyer for each of the 3 programs and are informational that would go to our membership and provide them additional information. And it's part of the discussion that we will have with our folks as we progress through open enrollment. And as we start to schedule our open enrollment appointments, I'm sure that I know we'll have Brown and Brown folks on site for the appointments, and any of the folks who happen to be in that class of 20 will be able to ask more detailed, specific questions on our benefits team and the Brown and Brown folks.
And that piece will be important because we can't add this program onto every plan. So Prudent RX cannot be on the high deductible health plan. So folks that might have specialty drugs may want to be guided toward the standard plan in order to leverage the savings.
And that comes in the education piece.
Yep.
When we really start talking to all our staff, and kind of we need to make sure we stress that, because we'd hate to have somebody feel that they missed an opportunity later on because they didn't have the information they thought they needed.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So you're saying there's about 20 folks that are utilizing the specialty drugs. I just want to make sure that they don't slip through the cracks, and then they find themselves in the position where maybe it wasn't even the greatest coverage, but it was coverage for them to get the medicine. And now they're going to be in the position where I don't want us to do something where people who are in most critical need of a specialty drug are now out of luck.
Well, and two ways to look at that. Maybe there's another reason they want to keep their high dollar plan aside from their prescriptions. Then it would be the status quo that they're actually going through right now. Their copay, they're actually encumbering, whatever cost they're encumbering. So, that's on their decision on that. But absolutely, we want to make sure we have a touch point with all our folks to make sure they make the most informed decision.
So all 20 will be personally spoken to about?
That is a good question. And quite honestly, I would say yes, as long as I speak with Brown and Brown and Christie to make sure that I'm not violating any, HIPAA rules as far as being able to identify those folks to speak to them. Quite honestly.
I appreciate the $120,000 in savings, but if we're talking about putting employees at risk of not getting a specialty drug, I worry.
And I don't think it, according to how the plan's been pretty, kind of laid out to us, at best case, we have a cost savings. At worst case, they're status quo. And they've already determined status quo works for them because they're actually already on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving now to superintendent actions. You're leaving, I would assume. Respectfully asked to depart. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gavin, you have the floor.
Chair Massaro and board members, good early evening. So I want to go ahead and provide to all of you the current job description for the superintendent. I'll tell you why I'm doing that. There is no PowerPoint or anything. Oh, I got it. Thanks. Sorry about that. All right, so although if you look on the second page, it says that the job description was last revised in 2018, it's kind of a misleading piece of information. In June of 2018, we brought, Colleen, 400, 500 jobs? Before the board, where we were changing just across the board physical requirement. There was like a tweak being made to about 400 job descriptions. So this has not been updated in quite a while. I'm not saying it needs to be updated, but I want you all to have it before you, because if you do want to make any adjustments to this, I would like to put it on the information workshop at the May 16th meeting and then put it up for advertisement, because we would be able to advertise, or, well, not advertise, but, you know, you'd be able to consider it and share it and consider it and then approve it at your June meeting. I just don't want us to overlook something, because like I said, this has not been updated in a long time, and there could be things that you want to do. With that said, for example, Ms. Hunt, you had made a statement of maybe we want to go beyond what our prior searches were in the past, where we always required ed leadership to be a requirement of that job search. If you look at the qualifications, although it says Florida Certification in School Administration and Supervision, which would be your ed leadership, number 4 says, such alternatives to the above as the board may find appropriate and acceptable. So you don't need to change this job description to say, you know, preferred or anything of that nature. You already have that in here. This is really more getting down to the performance responsibilities. If there's something that you believe, because of the change of times, because we've become more of a digital age, if you feel there's something that needs to be added in the job description that isn't contained in here, that would be the purpose of making that adjustment. Otherwise, when we go out for advertisement, the advertisement, well, yes, this job description would be there. Your qualifications, your criteria, your preferences would be contained in that advertisement superintendent search document. So this doesn't control the parameters of how you decide you want to go. If you decide you would like to have it just be that ed leadership is preferred, or if you decide you want to, you know, say something, and I happen to pull up Brevard superintendent search just as an example. If you all are deciding you want it to be a master's degree or equivalent from an accredited college or university, 10 years of successful leadership or administrative experience. That's not tying it to school experience, it's broadening it out. So if that's the direction that this board would like to go in, I just want to start you all thinking about this. I spoke to Andrea Messina today. She is in Charlotte County Thursday and Friday, and she is going to provide to me a better idea of our superintendent search timeline. They have my rough draft that I provided, and I based it upon what's our most convenient for us when we have board meetings, when we already are meeting, and I did it in that vein. We may have to, because of how quick we want to turn around and get a superintendent in place, we may have to have additional meetings. And so, and we're also having to operate with the number of superintendent searches that are now going on throughout the state. We're also having Mr. Vogel and Mr. Richter and Ms. Messina are also in various areas as well. Charlotte County, you know.
So there were 2 things I was hoping we were going to address tonight in this discussion. One was the timeline, now that we've all kind of had a little bit of time to think about this, and one was obviously the interim, which I assume we're going to address tonight. So
yeah, I'll be able to talk
So just sharing some thoughts around the timeline to begin with, for consideration and thought, that we look at possibly, I don't know about moving the timeline up, because it feels like we already have a significantly tight timeline, and given all of the openings across the state, I was going to share my concerns about not just staff's ability, I'm talking about FSBAs, because they have so many going on, but also the fact that there are so many openings right now. We're looking at the meeting, we were talking about hoping to have somebody in place for September 1 or October 1. Thinking about that a little bit, that means we're asking someone to really possibly put another district in a very bad position with leaving in the beginning of the school year. And so I just throwing it out for something to chew on and think about. And I don't think we have to make a decision right now tonight, but that what we might want to do is look at an interim, get the school year started, get our stakeholder groups in place, be able to do the appropriate serving of the community and everything else. But look at that timeline and stretch it out for a mid-break in the year, like January.
December, January.
Well, we look at a January start so that if somebody is working with another school district, it's in a more appropriate place for them to break their working relationship with the district to make a move and a leap instead of starting the school year and then come October 1, leaving a school district. Because I can tell you personally, I would not want that individual. That would, right off the bat, that I'd have an issue with that because it would be concerning to me about starting a new position, a new school year, and then leaving another district in the lurch in October. So I just wanted to throw that out there for thoughts and consideration, that we look at possibly a January timeline. By that time, there shouldn't be as many openings, for one. Staff at FSBA would probably have a little bit more time to deal with that. But we're also dealing with an individual who, if they're going to leave their district, can make a clean break mid-year, mid-semester, mid-year after the first semester.
Or leave their employment if you all decide to broaden it beyond just superintendents.
Correct.
After the holidays.
Right.
Just being very real world about it. So to me, this ties in with the conversation of the interim of just to
absolutely.
Right?
Right.
So I personally have so much confidence in LaShaka that the timeline. I want to make sure we get the best
right
leadership, right? So I think that's great. I think what it comes down to is the logistics of that. Like LaShaka obviously doesn't just sit around all day doing nothing. Kathy doesn't sit around all day doing nothing. If we, instead of it being a couple of months of her wearing both hats, now we're talking about a full semester.
Yeah, I think there would have to be
Do we now
distribution.
Whatever that is. So I think that's great. That's the piece that we need to.
No, and I know we all had a one-on-one with LaShaka, and that was kind of one of the conversations that I had with her, in that, hey, listen, we know you're Superwoman, but it's not fair to expect you to continue to juggle all the responsibilities of assistant superintendent in addition to the responsibilities of the superintendent. And what we were talking about is the redistribution of some of those responsibilities in a temporary fashion with her team so that things don't fall through the cracks. So I think she was going to work on that, kind of look at roles, responsibilities, things that she's directly responsible for in that time period that could be delegated to other folks to do that. Or you can look at temporarily appointing somebody else.
As a development.
But I was just really worried, and the more I thought about the appointment of the timeline, September, October is just such an awkward time for a school year.
Well, I'd love for LaShaka just to know she's got this semester.
Yeah, so there's a smooth opening. You're not bringing somebody, you're not starting school and then just right a month later you're bringing somebody brand new in, and it just seemed like it would be a break that might make sense.
Just a question. So in this scenario, you're proposing that we would start the process in January?
No. We start the process.
Okay, that would be the start date of the new superintendent. Okay, just wanted to clarify.
1 January would be the new superintendent start date.
I want us to take our time because I want this person to stay here and for this to really be a decision that we all agree on. So.
And the other thing that I would just, again, food for thought, in really kind of thinking about, right, this cycle we seem to be stuck on right now, this 3-year cycle that we seem to be stuck on. It's also in coordination. We're off cycle, meaning, I think going back to probably Jim Tager or Jacob, it was probably with Jacob.
It was Jacob.
It got into a cycle of the superintendent being a first-year superintendent with a new board. So you could be a superintendent, I'm sorry, not a new superintendent, you could be a superintendent in your 3rd year, but it is the year that a new board could be placed. And so when we do talk about the length of a contract, as a board, we will always have justification for just cause. If you wanted to terminate a superintendent. But we might want to start thinking about or consider a 4-year contract, right? Or even a 5-year contract. Something that gets beyond the 3rd year cycle, because we're off cycle right now. Because if you think about it, it's going to be, you're still going to have that new board coming in that's only going to have a year or so, and then a year after, and the contract's up.
Christy, what would be,
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, it's
Yeah,
great.
no, I hear what you're saying.
If there's
It's
a
just
5-year
Yeah,
contract.
that's something to discuss.
No, just
Sure,
think,
yeah.
that's what I'm just.
Float it
throwing
out there. And just,
But it could still be a 5-year contract, but there's verbiage,
an out clause.
An out clause.
Yeah, there is.
That would protect us and protect the superintendent.
Yep, there's
their
always,
interests.
yes, absolutely.
And even if everybody wasn't comfortable with a 5-year, you know, I would, even a 4-year might
Just get
help
you out of cycle.
provide some stability and just enough time to get out of that cycle that we've kind of fallen into. So just again, we don't have to decide anything, but I just wanted
I'm open to
just
that.
thinking about everything, just throwing that out there.
Okay, that's going to make things a lot easier
That's what I
for FSBA and some of the heavy lifts, you know, that they're asked to do, because everyone wants that superintendent yesterday, you know, and we've got, like I said, 9, 10, another shoe drop today, Duval County Superintendent.
Did they
was
do it?
retired.
Did it happen?
No, she's
They're
retired.
meeting.
She's
Okay.
retiring at the end of this school year.
Yep, well,
She has
I
announced.
saw that was coming.
So I did mention this to LaShaka in our conversation, and she was more comfortable with a January start, because then it just lets
Do we
her
have LaShaka?
focus.
So here's
We're
what,
talking
yeah.
as
So LaShaka and I have not had an opportunity yet to meet to discuss, but we would be creating a contract for her to do a couple of things. Number one, it would set forth the parameters of the expectations that are of her and you all of what is essential. It will set forth the salary that she will be provided during this term and during this time period. If there is going to be some redistribution, it would be, you know, her determination of what that redistribution looks like. But it's also with the understanding that if she, and I don't know, I haven't had a conversation with her about whether or not she's going to put her, you know, application in for this position, but if she would not, she's going to want to be protected in knowing that she gets to go back to her position of being the assistant superintendent. And so those would be the terms of the agreement that we will discuss and get carved into an agreement, and it would come before you all for your approval. I don't know, as that is something that I will have on the May 16th agenda, but definitely would be on that June agenda for you to approve once we have that agreement entered into. So that way, when Ms. Middlestat leaves, she will pick up immediately under those terms and conditions. If we can get it to you by the 16th, my preference would be that I will place it on the information workshop for approval that night. So I do want to let you know that would be my hope. The FSBA contract, thank you, Dr. Conklin, because there are terms like term of the agreement, and originally with what we were talking about of October, I'm fleshing that out. If y'all are wanting it to be a higher date of January 1, we would put January 30th, 2024 would be the term of the agreement, or earlier, if, you know, it ends up we hire somebody sooner. So those were pieces that, and that's the reason why there is no document on there. I intend to place again on the information workshop the actual agreement with us and FSBA for your approval that night, just so that you know. I may have a timeline. We'll start fleshing it out with this information. I am speaking to her either Thursday or Friday, like I said, She's going to have some downtime while the interviews are going on in Charlotte County. So we'll be in touch with getting that superintendent search timeline to you. She wants to come in June to have a face-to-face with you all. We're going to decide when that's going to be, but if it's not June, if we're going with the January, it gives us a little bit more flex where it could be maybe July, but sometime where she will come and do a face-to-face discussion with you on whether or not you want to have your superintendent search committee,
Will Bill Vogel still be participating?
Yes, Bill will be.
Dear love Bill. Bill is like,
Bill and John
he's
Rector
a
will be
retired
participating.
Superintendent, but he is a wealth of knowledge. And he has really helped guide us through the last 2 superintendent searches.
Yes.
But he is phenomenal. I can't say enough good things.
Bill and John Rector.
Those are the FSBA people. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Bill,
well,
John.
I think they were Osceola superintendent.
Yeah, I want to say
They
Osceola.
come with the package.
Yes,
that
they
we're
come with the
purchasing.
package. We're not paying
And
them
part of the
extra.
package.
And John is a former HR
And John,
director.
yes. John's great too.
And he's a wealth of knowledge and information. And then Andrea Messina is.
I just have 2 things.
Yes, ma'am.
One, if we're going to make that a 6-month contract for the interim, we need to look at salary structure.
Yes.
Okay, that needs to be done. And also, do we need to look at salary structure for the incoming
That-
superintendent?
yes.
Because all the positions that are posted right now are well over $200,000. They're
Yes.
larger districts. But if
Yeah.
you want to remain competitive, you're going to have to put up some more money than what we are offering, which is very low.
Yeah, I mean, those are conversations that we do need to have is what is our salary structure. I'm looking at Brevard counties and theirs is 225 to 300,000. Now
Yes.
granted,
Now,
they
granted, I
do
was just
have
gonna say, how many
74,000
students do they
students.
have?
Well, yeah, they're
84
large, but
schools,
everyone-
15 special centers, 12 charter schools, and
But
Partridge in a
consider
Pear
what
Tree.
buying a house costs right now in Flagler
Yeah,
County.
and this
that's what-
contract for the superintendent was done pre-COVID
Yeah.
and all the run-up and,
Stuff that's changed.
you know, all the effects, all the monetary effects of COVID came
Kathy
after that,
literally came in.
like when it started.
Yes.
She
saved us through.
So
she was hired
It was
March.
pre-COVID.
She was hired March.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
And kid not, we shut down 2 weeks later, and she started off with having to decide how we were opening our schools.
It was crazy.
Yeah, we're going to have to
And
restructure the
first
salary.
Crazy.
So.
To get a great year, you need a great salary.
Okay.
So those will be conversations. I hope to have more information with respect to that in terms of a better timeline for you. But I did want to make sure, I think with opening it up to being a January start date, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in allowing your meetings to not be as
I think it'll help
rushed,
with the
as
community
compressed.
too,
Yeah.
to feel involved.
Yeah, I think it's great. My only question at this point is just the transition, just making sure our district, it's a clean transition, right? So I would just be curious, what is that date of handoff? Is it truly like July 1, or have we talked to Superintendent Middlestead? Is she going to be taking any vacation time, or she's actually last day is going to be?
My understanding is she's right till the end.
She's already-
and, you know, she will be prepared to
So for
pass the
4th of July
baton.
holiday, you know, or what, July 1st?
June 30th.
No, June 30th.
June
June
30th.
30th
The end
will
of her
be
contract.
her
Yes.
contract.
So
done.
June 30th, so LaShaka would be, if she's
1 July.
willing, would
July
be
1.
starting,
1 July.
so not June 30th, but July 1.
Right.
Right.
And they most likely will,
That's
I would, you know,
Sure.
overlap. Kathy would.
They have been.
Yeah, they have.
They have been, so that's not an issue.
So that is everything I have to discuss with you today. I did, like I said, I wanted to give you the superintendent of schools job description, just in case there's anything in there that you go, this is a little outdated, we need to update. I think now is a perfect opportunity in time. Every time we have kind of talked about doing that, we were under the gun. And we said, well, I think it's outdated, or I think we need to make some changes, but we didn't. You have the opportunity now, and so I did want to give you that opportunity. So if you want to do that, let me know. We can get those changes put in, adjusted, shoot me an email. if there's any other questions that you have, but I will have a better timeline for you. I will email that to you if I get an updated timeline ahead of time. I don't think that's something that necessarily, yeah.
Do we need to be voting on different aspects of this? Like, you know, Dr. Conklin brought up a January 1 start date. Do we have to formally, at a nighttime meeting, vote on that, or can we just talk about that stuff?
You've given me a
workshops?
consensus. You've given a consensus that you all are in agreement to push that to a 1 January. And I think that's going to open up a lot more avenues, you know, of who you're going to be looking at. And candidate-wise, I think it's going to give you a little bit of breathing room. I do agree with you.
Also,
And the
really
candidates
cold
too.
up north, so we might
Yes.
get some additional applicants to
It's
good for the
candidates. You never know. Yeah, and it makes it a little bit cleaner and easier, I think, from that standpoint. Things, online survey, that won't be as rushed. We were gonna have to probably rush that a little bit. It allows you to get some good feedback from the community on what they deem to be important. So that way, again, that goes to your qualifications of what your next needs are gonna be, as well as you all to have kind of a little bit of a dive into what your qualifications are of that leader. You've started to gel in terms of deciding what kind of things you want direction-wise this district to go in. And I think that has to be married to what your superintendent is looking like too, so that they can coexist together. That's about it that I had, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going on now to old business. Old business.
I think this probably falls under old business. I wanted to look at us updating and clarifying policy 904. I've had a lot of parents reaching out about signs that are in school, posters, and that sort of thing, and what's allowed. Recently, I spoke to one of our principals, just kind of asked, you know, can we get some clarification on this? And what he said to me was that this was part of a school assignment, which I can totally understand. But just to use it as an example, say the kids did an assignment on presidents, U.S. presidents, we probably wouldn't hang Trump and Biden posters in the hallways, you know what I mean?
Actually, I think they did.
Did they?
Yeah, probably. They probably did.
I mean, school, so yeah.
Yeah, it's education.
I'm sure they did.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd like us, if it's okay, if we can get a consensus to.
Yeah, I'd be open to reviewing that.
What is, I'm sorry, Christy, what is the policy?
It's about political, 904
yeah,
is about political signs in the schools and things like that.
Religion,
The different
advertising.
displays. It's a little bit, it definitely is very vague, and it leaves a lot of
It's advertising in schools.
open interpretation, and I don't even know, it almost looks like that's the policy that it's applied to, but it almost doesn't even fit some of the.
Advertising or curriculum?
Well, it's.
Or maybe we need a new policy,
Yeah.
I don't.
It's well, if you're looking for consensus to discuss that, and whether it's 904 or it's a new policy, if we start at 904 and we see it somewhere, I'm open to having that discussion, at least that's my consensus.
I am always open to looking at any of our policies. I would
Well, then
love
we have a
to-
consensus, so we'll go on to the review. So we got anything else, old business?
Yes, I do. Okay, just, I want to look at how we're communicating when our children are being surveyed by different agencies through the school. There was a survey that was sent out through the Department of Health that reached my son in 6th grade, and I feel there are very inappropriate, these are not age-appropriate questions for a 6th grader. That's my personal opinion. But that's not. What my concern was is this was not communicated well to the parents. It was thought that this was emailed out to the parents, but it was in fact not. It was only posted in Skyward, and this was. I don't believe it was intentional. It was a technical misunderstanding of how Skyward works. But there were a lot of parents that were not notified that their children were going to be taking the survey. And they should have had an opportunity to review these questions, because some of them included, think back over the last week, how many times have you had 5 or more alcoholic drinks in a row? To a sixth grader. Again, it's making an assumption as if that is what 5 is the threshold. I mean, have you had 1 alcoholic? I mean, again, it's just these are. I leave it to the parents to decide whether this is appropriate for their children. But asking how many times have you attempted to commit suicide? Again, the way they're asking the questions here, I just don't think are appropriate. I mean, have you attempted to commit suicide? If that's what you're trying, but how many times have you? It almost is an assumptive thing that everybody's doing that, right? And I know that's a serious problem, but I think that parents should be able to look at this here. And there's also very probing family questions about parents. Asking kids to reveal things about their parents' conduct, and even goes into specifically calling out different types of alcohols like vodka and this, that, and other thing. And at 6th grade, I just don't think this is appropriate. And I don't know if this was because they thought maybe 7th or 8th and 6th wasn't in there, but we need to review how we communicate this out to parents to make sure they get full transparency and let them decide if this survey is something that they think is good for their children. And so I'd like to have us discuss this, whether these come before the board beforehand, or we just send it out to the parents, let them decide. But we got to have a better way to communicate, because I did not get this.
First of all, yeah, I'll take this. First of all, the survey that Mr. Furry's talking about is the Florida Youth Survey. It is a survey that's been distributed for as long as I've been around, 20 plus 30 years. It is a survey that is made up of, well, it's supported by, yes, the Florida Health Department, Florida Department of Children's and Families, and also the FDOE.
And SAMHSA.
Yes, the purpose of it, and it's an anonymous survey. You don't put your name down. So it's not like you're identifying yourself. But the major purpose of the survey is to utilize it to find out what's really going on in kids' heads.
It's about risk factors.
It is. It's extremely important about risk factors, and it's also very important to many local organizations, because the data that they get from that, I mean, some kids just blow it out. They just answer as crazy as they possibly can. Other kids are very methodical about it. And I think this is a problem that we face when you have 6th graders that are now middle schoolers, because it's a middle school test. Schools get randomly selected. Yeah. Okay, we don't know who gets it, when they get it. And they just take it on their iPad, and if you don't want to take it, you don't take it. Okay, you don't have to take it, you're not mandated to take it. However, I do believe that principals should notify parents that it's coming up. And if they want to find out more information, then they could look at a draft or whatever. But this is not elementary school anymore. Middle school is very different from elementary school. Welcome to the big leagues. These things happen, and it's not. This is a problem not with Flagler County Schools, other than notifying parents. I think they should notify parents and having the opportunity to opt out. You can do that. But this is reality.
Unfortunately, we do have 6th graders.
Yeah, and yes. 6th graders were elementary school only.
We have 6th graders.
In our school. But I get your point.
We have 6th graders.
And I agree that this should be a parent's choice on the survey. But my point is, we need more transparency. These questions should have been sent out to the parents to review of what their children are going to see. There are things in here that just are especially for a 6th grader, that are just not appropriate questions, I believe, to be asking a child who's not necessarily dealing with these issues. I think this is a form of mental health evaluation for those that are struggling here. And I think from a psychiatrist's perspective or a counselor's perspective on individual use, but this is a state down thing. I understand we didn't have control over the content of this, right. But there are surveys that we may have control. So this is just open my eyes to this. I think we need to have some sort of policy that says that parents must receive an email before a survey is coming out, and then have the questions, have them available, at least online, that they can click through on an email to say, these are the survey questions, whether they're anonymous or not, parents need to know what their kids' questions or kids are.
Part of the test is that their parents, if a kid's being beat by his family, that goes into that also, abuse. Abuse is involved in that. They're not gonna be able to let their family see that. You gotta understand that mental health, I mean, DeSantis used this for the mental health movement. This is one of the tests that they used.
He
So
did,
she could,
yeah.
and he did, and
The
his wife
results.
pushed the suicide piece. That's her baby, mental health. This is what they used the data. And it's just the idea to see where the kids are, where they're gonna dump the money, because it's all financially driven. So the money from the state goes into these pots that they think, oh, we need help here with suicide. We were the #1 county in suicide in Florida for a very long time, unfortunately.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We were, though. It's very real. We have 6th graders that are using drugs. We have kids that are beaten, okay, or deprived meals. This is reality. It happens all the time. Not in your family, that's a good thing, and the people you deal with. But there's a lot of kids out there that it affects. And they do the best they can to try to collect that information, put it in a pot, so then they can distribute the help that is needed in the areas that it's needed in.
Well, yeah,
So-
but the state's right to know does
think-
not trump a parent's right to discern what their child is being offered up. Because you're asking a sixth grader to be subjected to these questions and then make a decision on their own whether or not they should answer these. That's my point. And I understand I understand where your heart is on that and where those who maybe created this heart is here, but there are kids that are not dealing with these things, and they should not be subjected to some of these questions. Not all of them are horrible, but there are some here that are not appropriate, in my opinion. If I had received an email, my only reason why I'm bringing my personal opinion to this, because I was the parent that did not get notified,
Right.
and my son made his own decision as reading the questions. He said, I don't want to take this, and he's not the only one, because other parents reached out to me in that class as well. So that's my point. Whether this is appropriate or not, I'm not going to make that call for anybody else. But
It's anonymous, though. It's not.
Is there a
All we're looking
policy, like
for-
what?
All we're looking for is that parents are just aware, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Then I suggest you take this to the Department of Education.
Well, but that's
Go to the head of the
no, but
Department
we
of
have
Education.
but we have local.
This is where your
communi-
complaint is, because that's where it's coming from.
No, if we're going to change a survey, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is, at a local level, we have an obligation to inform parents of what their children are being asked, especially in a survey, which is not, they didn't send their kids today to do a survey. They sent their kids to learn reading and math. Survey was added into their day. Parents not looking for that, right? And whether, again, it's not a debate of what the content per se, that whether it's right or wrong. We can have a debate, we can go to the state to change it if we want to, but my point is, parents need to know what it is that their kids are getting subjected to at school.
And the principals should notify, I agree.
Yeah, and there was a breakdown here, but the thing is that after talking to the principal, the vehicle of communication is where we're having some struggles, from what I can understand. I think we need to have a more centralized, if Skyward is the app that we use amongst the many that we have, then we need to train all of our schools, say, this is our app that we're gonna commit, and here's how that email goes out, and is not just a post. It's just about educating, communicating. That's all, you know.
No, I agree with that,
Yeah, and I don't wanna
100%.
debate the content of it.
Dr.
It's,
Conklin.
you know, just my personal opinion, so.
So this conversation's kind of come up a couple of different times with different things, you know, about opting out, you know, kids basically opting out of different things or opportunities or surveys or whatever it might be. I think that, you know, and Shaka, I know you're listening over there, but I think one of the things possibly over the summertime or whenever that we try to come up with, because listen, it's gonna fall through the cracks if we don't come up with some kind of a process or a procedure. And the onus needs to go back onto a parent to be responsible, to do the work, to review, to look at, to say, yes, I want my kid to participate or not to participate. Because as strongly as you may feel about your child not participating, you may have another parent that feels just as strongly about their child
I agree with you
participating.
with that.
So at the beginning of the year, whether it's by grade level or by, you know, elementary, middle, and high school, these surveys over the course of the next school year, or these opportunities, or whatever it might be, right, are going to be made available to your child over the next school year, you have the opportunity now to opt in or opt out. There's 5, 6 different things on that list. It's on the responsibility of the parent to review whatever those things are and check a box. No, I don't want my child to opt in or out or whatever, but that there is something there, so that as a teacher, you're not having to constantly go back, make sure somebody didn't miss an email, make sure somebody didn't miss a phone call or communication or whatever it might be, or a
Something more
Skyward
general, that could be
post
great.
or whatever.
I like the
But that there is an actual opt-in or out of all the things that they're gonna be happening, and the parent signs it at the bottom.
Right.
Notification has been given. If you signed it and then they sit for the survey and somebody's upset, then you can say, but you opted in or you opted out. On us,
Right, I like
we
that.
own it,
That's fair.
we screwed up, you know, we let it slip through the cracks. Or the parent saying, oh man, I forgot.
Yeah,
You
and,
know.
and again, like you said, it's on them, but we just need to give them the opportunity. And if they choose to not read
Well,
it
it's a
or-
recurring theme.
Yeah.
This has come up, whether it's this survey
Or
or that
both,
survey
this
or
or
what,
this, yeah.
whatever.
But Shaka, when did the state tell you, when did they tell you Indian Trails is being tested? I'm just curious. Because it was Indian Trails is the only school that got tested this year?
Indian Trails is
Survey?
yes.
Yeah.
Indian Trails is the only school. I think what and I don't want to speak for Mr. Furry, I think what Mr. Furry is indicating is that the way the information was pushed out to the families was in a more passive way than a direct email. The information was posted in Schoology. The information should have been sent out in an email to those families, so that those families had that opportunity.
But when did we know Indian Trails was being tested? I'm just curious.
We knew as early as April 3rd, for sure, because
Okay.
April 3rd was when we communicated to Indian Trails that they would be a part of the
study.
The
Yeah,
survey,
study.
yes.
Yeah.
And a timeline
So we
for
would have to
community.
make up a document that could present any possibility.
Yes, that's what I was
Because
just
we never
gonna
know.
say.
We don't know if we're gonna get selected or not in certain
And I'm not
tests.
saying that's the
Certain
solution.
surveys.
I'm
That-
just
but that's
saying
every year.
This is a
It's a
reoccurring.
good way
Yeah.
to start the
So-
conversation. That's one possibility. But you know, one size doesn't fit all. Like this one, we couldn't do this at the beginning of the year because we didn't know we were going to have
Right,
it.
right, no, but if we did
have a
something
plan
with all
B
of
for
them.
that kind of scenario.
Well, just do it with all of them.
Yeah.
You might get
And
them. You
yeah,
might,
you
your
could,
st-
it's
your
always a
child might
random
be submitted
selection. So you could just have it on
Right.
a standard
The possibility
survey.
We do
exists.
have that for the standard surveys, screeners that we do know of. There was a document for this particular survey. Absolutely, the communication going forward will be that this is the way that that information is going to be communicated with families,
Okay.
so that it's always the same. Ryan Deasing and his team are also working on some things in order to improve that communication, so that there's one place.
Or
And the
even a
documents
text alert,
look, they
something
look
like
the same, and so we are working through that.
And it was
it
just,
is an
was
area that
was
I
it
do
just
agree
sixth
with
grade?
you.
Just sixth grade, or was it the entire middle
it's
school?
usually
No,
middle
it was,
school.
it was
It's
a
usually
random
middle school.
selection within the school, random selection.
You
The
lucked
school
out.
was random selection, the classes were random selection as well.
It
But
wasn't the whole school, it was certain
it
classes.
was not the
Yes,
whole
that's what-
school,
that's what I
yes.
wanted- I didn't know what it
It was not
was.
the whole school,
Right,
no.
right, and that's what they just, then they collected from across the whole state.
Yes. And I-
That's how it goes.
all surveys will be sent out through
Right.
email to families.
All right, thank you.
So my question is, we're not needing to do a policy change.
I think that the
No, no,
conversations
no,
are too different.
Okay, maybe it's a
904
procedural
is
change.
different.
I think 904 is different.
No, I already wrote 904, but 904 is separate
Yeah, I
and
did
apart
bring that up
from
about policy.
survey.
I can say, if we can get.
Control it
feel
through
confident
procedure.
through procedure that if this is happening, then we
Yeah,
may
and
not
I
need
agree.
to add another policy for this.
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah,
to
thank you for clarifying.
clarify whether or not
Works.
we were talking about another.
All right, any other?
Chair, just
Yes,
real
go
quick.
ahead, old business.
Something that's been brought up is the conversation around alternative education. And I recently learned about St. John's County, their model of like, almost like the same building, half is
School within a school.
Two schools.
Yeah.
School within a school.
School within a
So
school.
so it's like if I have a manifestation, if my behavior is a manifestation of whatever, I'm this half, if it's like rising up, it's maybe this half. Much like executive session today, would we be able to hear from somebody in St. John's? Could we potentially set that up, or
I like
could,
that.
could
That's certainly
somebody
something
talk
worth
to us
doing.
about their model?
Yep.
Does it have to be executive session?
No, I don't,
I
no,
was
that
just saying,
wouldn't.
like,
She was just saying, could we invite somebody in
Oh, yeah.
from
A
St.
subject matter
John's?
expert.
Yeah.
Could we do that sooner than later? Because I think that that's something that kind of keeps coming up, and we keep not talking about it.
I was thinking about
All
that,
right.
like, we haven't
Yep.
done anything.
All right, any other old business?
Thank you.
New business, any new business? No new business. Okay, public comments. We're back.
Okay, I have Judith Baczak, again on Belterre Swim and Racket Club.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for having a very good discussion today. I mean, I agree with everyone, but it was a very good discussion, so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank Ms. Gavin for coming up with the bond, so people could know about that. I still not sure if we came up with the original IGT thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go into
Sure,
the
I know that's
archives.
probably filed away before there were computers. But I would appreciate that knowledge. But I do want to thank you again. I hope you all look at it again, think of it for another couple of weeks, and I hope you sway my way, but you know, I realize you all have your opinions. Finally, in case nobody knows this, you know, it is not just a pool there, there's a whole facility, it's a whole community, it's 11 acres of a lot of stuff. The people that have, I pay, I don't have the health insurance that covers it, so I pay yearly when they offer yearly. But the thing is the people that do use the health insurance, they must have a gym along with a pool for it to be utilized. So you couldn't just keep the pool open without the gym, or you couldn't have health insurance. I wasn't sure if you were all aware of that. So I just wanted to throw that in. Thank you again. I do appreciate the fact that you were giving us a chance for, you know, to keep it open. Okay, thank you.
Jack Slavutsky, again on Belterre Swim and Racket.
Well, I also want to say thank you everyone for pretty serious discussion. I'm very disturbed about some of the speakers did not mention senior citizen at all. I understand kids' education very important. Kids are our future, and I have kids, I have grandkids and everything, but gosh, I deserve to live too. Okay, why don't you think about our senior citizens who is already worked and they deserve good sport facilities? How much we can ask for? And she's right. We cannot go to school swimming pool. Now they call it Flagler Aquatic Center, whatever it is. We cannot go there because it does not accept my insurance. I live on a fixed income. Like it was offered here to you go here, take a shower there, and go to gym someplace else. No, you should not do that. We have a very good community. I understand 100. You got different spread about your monies. You said 175. I read it with less. But even so, increase your fees, please. Increase my taxes, but don't close it, please. Don't close. You have to consider us. We have what's the percentage of old people in Palm Coast? Well, give me an idea. 50%, 60%, 70%. You want to throw them out the board? No, don't do it, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Victor Silva,
Yeah, how are you?
Belterre Swim and Racket.
I'll just stand up and try to be quick. Just to respect your time, I know you guys have been for a long time, since 3 o'clock. I couldn't come in here earlier. I really appreciate, I've met Will before. We share a lot of the similar things about our kids. I voted for full disclosure. I voted for you, Will, Colleen. I don't know the other members. Like I said, I'm here for for the pool. I just started going to the pool because I was a member at the Ormond Y on the master's program. I moved in recently, so this is more convenient for me. Just started going to the pool here. My kids, I've been here for 15 years. My kids started in the swim program at Frida Zamba, and then we moved closer to Ormond Beach, so they continued on the swim team in Ormond Beach. But trying to be quick because there's a lot on my mind. You know, like you said, there's a lot of passionate members there. I've just recently started going there to start in the master's program, swimming program, those members are really passionate. And there's not enough time to really talk about this, but is there any way that to look, because I've been an aquatics director at YMCA when I was 16 to about 25 in Connecticut, and I've been involved in swimming and coaching all my years. Is there a way, and I know fiscal responsibility is very important to you, Will, and so is it to me, but I know once you close this down, your costs are not going to be $80,000. What's going to happen is it's like a boat. Once you start shutting things down, it's going to break down a lot quicker. So a lot of those costs are probably going to go into the hundreds and something. Then you're going to lose all those members, and if you want to bring this back afterwards, it's going to be an uphill battle to get all those members back. I think you need to just quick look at the costs that you're currently experiencing. There's probably some savings there, and probably how the memberships are being charged or coming in, and there might be maybe $2 or $3 or $5 to some of these seniors to pay additional, that they would probably do it if push came to shove. So there's many alternatives, and what I'm asking is, could I look at those expenses? Could I look at the membership, see some alternatives? Because I know once you go you shut down this pool, you're going to have a lot of costs, and you have this on your hands. You guys were given this because, from what I heard, you got it for free, and now you have to deal with it to 2030, and you're still going to have to deal with this. And there's no easy answer, and no easy. I know you guys have been debating about this, and there's other issues that you really want to deal with that are important of kids' health and students. But this is a potato that's on your hands, and you have to make a decision. I don't know if you have to make a decision on the 16th. Is it yes or no, or can you push this a little longer and examine this even further? Because once you've gone this way, you're never going to get. It's going to be a very difficult journey to possibly find other solutions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So is there any way to look at because I saw the 300-something thousand in expenses?
It's online. You go to the April 4th.
I did, and I don't base this has an estimated cost of $300-something thousand of running it annually, and it has an estimated cost of $81 if it just goes to the students. But what is the breakdown detail? And also on those memberships, how is that coming in? Because I'll tell you, Planet Fitness, where I'm a member active, and also in the YMCA, they were taking insurance. They all take insurance. Every single gym out there is taking insurance. So I don't know if insurance is the reason for failure. I don't know how the system works on insurance, on how I guess it's per use. It's not when you sign up. So I'd like to look into that. But the YMCA in Ormond Beach takes insurance, and then if you're in a master's program, you pay a supplement. Planet Fitness, I had the black membership for, I think it was like $20 a month. I used my insurance, and it was free. So,
Mr. Freeman, do you want to say something?
I think he'll get one then, maybe after.
I speak with him
Yeah,
after
we just
work.
speak, yeah, he will help, he will get with you and explain.
Because I talked to Josh earlier. And
Yeah, that'll help you.
I just want to say, message to all of you. People who elect you, 500 signature, asking you, please consider.
Thank you, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
is there anyone else for public comment?
That's it for public comment.
Closing comments, anyone? All right, then I'll officially adjourn tonight's
Good
meeting.
afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.